The eviction notice felt like sandpaper against Tasha Bennett's fingers. She sat on the concrete steps outside her apartment building, the rough surface cold beneath her jeans despite the afternoon warmth. Three identical envelopes lay spread across her lap like accusations. Final notice, past due, eviction proceedings. The words blurred together as the sun beat down on her dark brown skin, making her squint against the glare. Her phone screen showed the truth in brutal numbers. Checking account balance, $17. Her mother's medical bills, $43,000. And tomorrow, she would have nowhere to live. Tasha pressed her palms against her eyes, willing herself not to cry in public. She had been strong through everything that had come before this moment. Strong when her mother collapsed at work and the ambulance took her away. Strong when the diagnosis came back and the treatments began. Strong when she lost her job at the bookstore after taking too many days off for hospital visits. Strong when she sold her car to pay for medications. Strong when her laptop went next. Then her grandmother's jewelry, each piece a small heartbreak. But sitting here now with everything crumbling around her, she felt the cracks spreading through her resolve like ice breaking across a frozen lake. Her phone buzzed. Another creditor. She watched it ring, the vibration traveling through her palm, then let it go to voicemail. What was the point of answering? She had nothing to give them. No promises left to make, no plans left to offer. The street around her moved with typical Tuesday afternoon energy. People walked past with grocery bags hanging from their arms, dogs on leashes, coffee cups in hand. They had homes to return to. They had tomorrow figured out. They belonged to a world that made sense. Tasha pulled her green cardigan tighter around her shoulders. Even though the temperature was warm, the cardigan had been her mother's. It still smelled faintly of lavender perfume, and wearing it made her feel less alone. Her mother was recovering now, thank God, but the bills remained. The consequences remained. The impossible situation remained. A shadow fell across her lap. Tasha looked up, squinting against the sun behind the figure standing before her. The man was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a dark suit that looked like it had been made specifically for his frame. He had olive skin and close-cropped, dark hair touched with gray at the temples. His face was angular, handsome in a severe way, with eyes that seemed to take in her entire situation with one glance. Behind him at the curb sat a black Maserati, its engine purring quietly. "I am sorry to bother you, miss," he said. His voice was low and careful, each word pronounced with subtle precision. There was an accent there, faint but present. Italian, maybe. "My name is Luca Moretti. I know this will sound strange, but I have been looking for someone, and I think you might be able to help me." Tasha gathered her papers quickly, embarrassment flooding through her. A man in a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, standing over her while she sat on concrete steps with eviction notices. She must look pathetic. "I'm not interested in whatever you're selling," she said, standing up. Her legs felt unsteady. When had she last eaten? "I don't have any money." "I am not selling anything," Luca said. He pulled a card from his inside jacket pocket and held it out. "I am offering help." Tasha took the card reluctantly. It was heavy cardstock, simple black printing. Just a name and a phone number. No company, no title. Nothing that explained who this man was or what he wanted. "Help with what?" she asked. Luca glanced at the papers in her hands, then met her eyes again. There was something in his gaze that made her uncomfortable. Not threatening exactly, but intense, like he saw through surfaces to the truth beneath. "I have a proposition," he said. "It is unusual, and I understand if you refuse. But I am desperate, and I think we might be able to help each other." Tasha studied him. There was no mockery in his expression. No pity either, just honest desperation that somehow mirrored her own. A man who looked like he owned the world, desperate. It did not make sense. "I'm listening," she said finally. Luca glanced around the street, then back at her. "Perhaps we could speak somewhere more private. My car has air conditioning." Every instinct Tasha had learned growing up told her not to get in a stranger's car. But those same instincts had also told her to save money and work hard, and everything would be fine. Those instincts had failed her. Maybe it was time to try something different. Fine, she said, but the door stays unlocked. Of course. He walked to the Maserati and opened the back door for her. The interior was black leather, immaculate and cool. Tasha slid inside and Luca walked around to enter from the other side. He left both their doors slightly ajar. True to his word, the relief from the heat was immediate. Tasha had not realized how much the sun had been draining her until she felt the cool air on her skin. Luca sat across from her, his posture straight but not stiff. He folded his hands in his lap. Tasha noticed he wore a gold ring on his right hand, heavy and old-looking, with some kind of crest engraved on it. My daughter turns 5 years old in 1 week, Luca began. She has been asking about her mother, someone she has never met. Tasha frowned. I don't understand what this has to do with me. Her mother left us when Sophie was 3 months old, Luca continued, his voice even but his jaw tight. She could not handle my life, the responsibilities, the complications. For years I have managed to deflect Sophie's questions. But this year she is adamant. She wants her mother at her birthday party. The pieces were not fitting together in any way that made sense. Tasha waited. I need someone to pretend to be my wife for 1 week, Luca said, looking directly at her. To be there for Sophie's birthday. To give her one perfect memory of having both parents present. Tasha stared at him. The words seemed absurd, like something from a movie. You want me to pretend to be your wife? Yes. For a week? Yes. Why would you ask a complete stranger to do that? Luca pulled out his phone, tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward her. The photo showed Tasha from 2 years ago. She was at the park near her old apartment, wearing a bright blue dress, her natural hair in twists. She was smiling at something off camera. She barely recognized that version of herself. That woman had looked happy. Sophie saw you, Luca said. 3 days ago, at the cafe shop across this street, you walked past the window. She pointed at you and said, Daddy, that lady has a nice smile. She looks like she gives good hugs. She has not stopped talking about you since. How did you get this photo? Tasha asked, unease creeping up her spine. I have connections, Luca said simply. I found your social media. I learned about your situation, your mother's illness, your job loss, your eviction. He paused. I am sorry for your troubles. Truly, but they are also why I came to you today. Tasha looked down at the eviction notices still clutched in her hand. You think because I'm desperate, I'll do anything. No, Luca said firmly. I think because you are desperate, you might consider something you would otherwise refuse. There is a difference. What are you offering? Tasha asked, even though part of her knew she should not. Should walk away. Should tell this strange man in his expensive car to leave her alone. $100,000, Luca said. $50,000 before you begin. $50,000 when the week is complete. You will live in my home. You will have your own room, your own space. All I ask is that you spend time with Sophie, attend her birthday party, and help me give my daughter one happy memory. $100,000. The number echoed in Tasha's mind. That would pay her mother's medical bills. That would secure an apartment, maybe even a small house. That would give her breathing room to find a real job, to rebuild her life from the ruins it had become. She thought about her mother, still weak but recovering, worried sick about Tasha's situation. She thought about the shelter she would have to call tonight if she could not find a solution. She thought about a 5-year-old girl who just wanted her mother at her birthday party. Why me specifically? Tasha asked. There must be hundreds of women you could hire for this. Sophie chose you, Luca said. I could hire an actress, yes, someone who does this professionally. But Sophie saw something in you, something genuine. And I trust my daughter's instincts more than I trust most things in this world. Tasha looked at him, really looked at him. His suit was perfectly tailored but dark, simple. His watch was expensive but not flashy. Everything about him suggested wealth, but quiet wealth, the kind that did not need to announce itself. What do you do, Mr. Moretti? She asked. I handle family business, and he said. The phrase sounded practiced, a deflection. My work is not relevant to this arrangement. If I'm going to pretend to be your wife, I think it's relevant. Luca was silent for a long moment. Then he said, I do what I must to provide for my daughter and honor my family. Some of my methods are unconventional, but I have rules. I do not harm children. I do not involve innocents. And I keep my word, always. It was not really an answer, but something in his tone told Tasha she would not get more. Not now, maybe not ever. How do I know you'll actually pay me? She asked. Luca reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, a thick envelope. He held it out to her. $50,000, he said. Cash. Count it if you like. Your mother's medical bills will be paid by the end of today. I have already made the arrangements. All you have to do is say yes. Tasha took the envelope with shaking hands. It was heavy, real. She opened it and saw stacks of $100 bills, neatly bundled. She had never seen so much money in her life. I could just take this and run, she said, testing him. You could, Luca agreed, but you will not. You have a kind heart. I can see it. You would not steal from a man trying to make his daughter happy. He was right, and somehow that made this whole situation even stranger. A man who barely knew her, trusting her with $50,000 in cash. If I say yes, Tasha said slowly, when would I start? Today, Luca said. Right now, I will send someone to collect your belongings from your apartment. You will never have to see this building again if you do not wish to. Never have to come back to this place where she had cried herself to sleep for months. Never have to walk past the landlord who looked at her with disgust. Never have to explain to her neighbors why she was being evicted. Tasha looked out the window at the apartment building, then down at the money in her hands, then at Luca, this strange man offering her salvation wrapped in the strangest package imaginable. She knew what the smart thing was. She knew she should be more suspicious, should ask more questions, should protect herself. But kindness had always been her Moifus, even when it hurt her. And right now she needed hope more than she needed safety. Yes, Tasha said. The word came out as barely more than a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. Yes, I'll do it. Relief washed over Luca's face, subtle but unmistakable. He reached forward and offered his hand. Tasha looked at it for a moment, strong, scarred across the knuckles. A working man's hand despite the expensive suit. She took it. His grip was firm and warm. Thank you, Luca said quietly. You have no idea what this means to me. Thank you, Tasha replied. You have no idea what this means to me either. Luca made a phone call in rapid Italian. Tasha caught only fragments. An address. Instructions. Someone named Rocco would handle it. When he ended the call, he looked at her again. Do you have a bag? Anything you need immediately? Tasha thought about her apartment, the few possessions she had left. Just some clothes, some photos, my mother's things. Rocco will bring everything, Luca assured her. If anything is forgotten, it can be retrieved later. He closed his door, then leaned forward and said something to the driver in Italian. The car pulled smoothly away from the curb. Tasha watched the apartment building recede in the window. Her home for 3 years, the place where everything had fallen apart. She felt something shift inside her as it disappeared from view. Not quite relief, not quite fear, something in between. Maybe it was hope, maybe it was just exhaustion. But for the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. The city streets passed by outside the window, familiar but already distant. Tasha clutched the envelope in her lap and tried to process what she had just agreed to. 1 week. Pretend to be a wife, a mother. Give a little girl a happy birthday. Take the money and rebuild her life. It sounded simple when she thought about it that way. But nothing about Luca Moretti seemed simple. She glanced at him, sitting across from her in the dim interior of the car. He was looking out his own window, his profile stern and thoughtful. What kind of man hired a stranger to pretend to be his wife? What kind of life did he live that his daughter's mother had left? Mr. Moretti, she said. He turned to her. Luca, please. Luca, she corrected. What do I need to know? About you, about Sophie, about this week? Sophie is kind and clever, Luca said. She loves butterflies, books, and asking questions. She will probably ask you many things. Answer truthfully when you can. When you cannot, I will help you. And you? What about me? What do I need to know about you? Luca considered this. I am a private man. I value loyalty above all things. I keep my promises. I protect what is mine. He paused. For this week, you will be mine to protect. Do you understand? There was something in the way he said it that made Tasha's skin prickle. Not threat exactly, but weight, significance. I understand, she said, though she was not entirely sure she did. The car turned onto a street where the buildings grew taller and the trees grew thicker. They were leaving her neighborhood behind, heading somewhere else. Somewhere better or somewhere worse, she could not yet tell. Tasha looked down at the envelope in her lap one more time. $50,000, real, tangible, hers. She had stepped off those concrete steps and into a stranger's car, trusting a man she did not know with a face that promised both danger and protection in equal measure. Her old life was gone. Her new life, whatever it would be, was beginning. And for better or worse, it started now. The city changed as they drove. The buildings grew smaller and farther apart. Chain-link fences gave way to stone walls. Cracked sidewalks became tree-lined streets with names instead of numbers. Tasha watched the transformation through the window, each block taking her further from the world she knew. After 20 minutes, the car slowed. Ahead, iron gates stood between two stone pillars. No sign, no name. Just solid metal worked into an intricate pattern that looked old and expensive. The gates swung open as they approached, operated by someone Tasha could not see. The driveway curved through gardens that looked carefully maintained. Not the bright, cheerful gardens of suburban homes, but something more deliberate. Dark green hedges, mature trees, stone benches positioned in shadowed alcoves. Everything suggested privacy, permanence, control. The house came into view and Tasha felt her breath catch. It was not modern like the glass and steel mansions she had seen in magazines. This was old-world architecture, all stone and dark wood. 3 stories of gray stone with narrow windows. Ivy climbed to one wall. The front entrance was recessed beneath an archway, the heavy door made of wood so dark it was almost black. It looked like something from another time, another country, definitely another world from the cramped apartment she had left behind. The car stopped at the entrance. Luca opened his door and stepped out, then came around to open Tasha's. She climbed out on the unsteady legs, still clutching the envelope, and stood staring up at the house. "Welcome to my home," Luca said simply. Before Tasha could respond, the front door opened. A man emerged, broad and muscular, wearing dark clothes. He had a shaved head and a scar through his left eyebrow. He looked at Tasha with flat, assessing eyes, then nodded to Luca. "Rocco," Luca said. "This is Tasha Bennett. She will be staying with us." Rocco's expression did not change, but he inclined his head slightly to Tasha, a gesture of acknowledgement, not warmth. "Her belongings will stay with us, and Luca asked. "Enzo is collecting them now," Rocco replied. His voice was surprisingly soft for such a large man. "Should be here within the hour." "Good. Where is Sophie?" "In the garden with Diane." Luca nodded and turned to Tasha. "Come, I will show you where you will stay." Tasha followed him through the entrance and into the house. The interior matched the exterior's promise. The floors were dark hardwood, worn smooth by time. The walls held oil paintings in heavy frames, landscapes and portraits of severe-looking people. The furniture was substantial, the kind that would last generations. Everything spoke of money, but old money, established, rooted. The lighting was dim, coming from wall sconces that cast warm, low light rather than the bright overhead fixtures Tasha was used to. It created an atmosphere of quiet and shadow, making her want to speak in whispers. They climbed a wide staircase to the second floor. The hallway was long with doors on both sides. Luca walked to the third door on the right and opened it. "This will be your room," he said, stepping aside so she could enter. The room was larger than her entire apartment had been. A 4-poster bed dominated one wall, made up with dark blue linens. There was a dresser, a desk, a sitting area with 2 chairs near a window. Another door led to a private bathroom. Everything was clean and elegant without being ostentatious. Tasha walked to the window. It overlooked the back garden, where she could see a little girl in a yellow dress running between flower beds, while an older woman watched from a bench. "That is Sophie," Luca said, coming to stand beside her. His voice had softened. "And Diane, our housekeeper. She has been with the family for 20 years. She knows the truth about our arrangement. Tasha watched the little girl. Even from here, she could see the joy in her movement, the carelessness of a child who felt safe and loved. She is beautiful, Tasha said quietly. She is everything, Luca replied. There was something in his voice that made Tasha look at him. His face had changed. The stern, controlled expression they had softened, just slightly, as he watched his daughter. Love was written there plainly, without defenses. Whatever else this man might be, he loved his child. That much was clear. I should explain the rules, Luca said, turning away from the window. The softness disappeared, replaced by businesslike efficiency. First, you are safe here. No one will touch you. No one will threaten you. You have my word. Okay, Tasha said. Second, do not ask me about my work. If you hear things, see things, forget them. They do not concern you. A chill went down Tasha's spine. What kind of things? The kind you are better off not knowing, Luca said. His eyes met hers, serious and direct. I am trusting you in my home, around my daughter. But there are boundaries. Respect them. Tasha nodded slowly. She wanted to ask more, but the look on his face told her not to push. Third, you may go anywhere in the house except my office. The door is marked. Do not enter. I understand. Fourth, if you leave the property, tell me or Rocco first. This is for your safety, not to control you. Safety from what? Luca's jaw tightened. I have enemies. It is unlikely they would bother you, but I do not take chances with people under my protection. The word enemies hung in the air between them. Tasha thought about the envelope of cash in her hands, about Rocco's flat, dangerous eyes, about the way Luca spoke in careful phrases that revealed nothing concrete. What exactly do you do, Luca? She asked. I told you, family business. That's not an answer. It is the only one you will get, Luca said, not unkindly but firmly, for your sake as much as mine. Ignorance is protection. He reached into his jacket and pulled out another envelope, this one thinner than the first. He held it out to her. Your mother's hospital bills, he said. Receipts showing they have been paid in full. Contact them if you wish to verify. Tasha took the envelope with trembling hands. She opened it and saw official letterhead, stamped paid, her mother's name at the top. $43,000 of debt erased. Tears stung her eyes. She had carried that weight for so long, it felt strange to be without it suddenly, like a physical burden lifted. Thank you, she whispered. You are doing me a greater service than you know, Luca said. This is simply fair compensation. There was a knock at the door. Rocco appeared in the doorway, a large suitcase in each hand. Her things, he said, setting them down just inside the room. That was fast, Tasha said, surprised. Enzo is efficient, Luca replied. Check that everything is there. If anything is missing, let me know. Rocco left as silently as he had arrived. Tasha opened the first suitcase and saw her clothes, her shoes, her few possessions all carefully packed. Her mother's cardigan lay on top, folded neatly. Whoever had packed this had taken care of it. The second suitcase held books, photos, personal items, everything from her apartment, or at least everything that mattered. How did they know what to take? Tasha asked. They took everything that was not furniture, Luca said simply. Tasha thought about strangers going through her apartment, packing her life into suitcases. It should have felt invasive, but instead it felt like rescue. I will let you settle in, Luca said. Unpack. Rest if you like. Come down when you are ready. Sophie is eager to meet you. He moved toward the door, then paused and looked back. Tasha, he said, I meant what I said. You are safe here. Whatever you might think of me or my life, I keep my family protected. For this week, you are family. Remember that. Then he was gone, closing the door quietly behind him. Tasha stood alone in the beautiful room, surrounded by her meager possessions, holding envelopes that represented more money than she had ever had. She walked to the window again and looked out at the garden, at Sophie still playing, at the high stone walls that surrounded the property. Safe, Luca had said, but safe from what? She thought about his words, his enemies, his work that she should not ask about. The way Rocco looked like he could break someone in half without raising his pulse. The house that felt more like a fortress than a home. What had she walked into? But then she looked at the paid hospital bills, at the $50,000 in cash, at the bedroom that was hers, even if just for a week, at the little girl in the garden who needed a mother, even a pretend one. She had made her choice. There was no going back now. Tasha began to unpack her suitcases, hanging her simple clothes in the enormous closet, arranging her few books on the empty shelves. It did not take long. Her entire life fit into 2 suitcases with room to spare. When she finished, she washed her face in the marble bathroom, changed into a clean shirt, and stood at the mirror. The woman looking back at her had the same face, but everything else was different. Different room, different circumstances, different future. She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and left the room. The house was quiet as she descended the stairs. She could hear faint voices somewhere but could not place them. The paintings on the walls watched her pass with severe expressions. She felt like an intruder, out of place in all this dark elegance. She found her way to a set of French doors that opened onto the back garden. Through the glass, she could see Sophie still playing, now sitting in the grass examining something in her hands. Diane sat on the bench nearby, knitting. Tasha pushed open the door and stepped outside. The garden was beautiful in a subdued way. The flower beds held blooms in deep colors, purples and reds and dark pinks. Stone paths wound between them. In the far corner stood what looked like a small greenhouse. Sophie looked up at the sound of the door opening. Her eyes went wide. "Daddy!" she called, scrambling to her feet. "Daddy, the nice lady is here." Luca emerged from somewhere on the other side of the garden. He must have been working out there, Tasha realized. He walked toward them, and Sophie ran to meet him, grabbing his hand and pulling him toward Tasha. "Is this her? Is this the lady from the coffee shop?" Sophie asked, bouncing on her toes. "Yes," Luca said, his face softening again as he looked at his daughter. "Sophie, this is Tasha. Tasha, my daughter Sophie." Sophie stared up at Tasha with enormous dark eyes, taking in every detail. Then she smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. "You really do have a nice smile," Sophie said. "I was right." Tasha knelt down to Sophie's level, her heart already melting. "Thank you, so do you. Do you really give good hugs?" "I hope so. Can I test?" Tasha opened her arms, and Sophie stepped into them without hesitation. She wrapped her small arms around Tasha's neck and squeezed tight. She smelled like grass and sunlight and something sweet. "Good hug confirmed," Sophie announced, pulling back. "Are you really going to be my mommy for my birthday?" Tasha glanced up at Luca, who nodded slightly. "Yes," Tasha said gently, "if that is okay with you." "It is very okay with me," Sophie said seriously. "I have been wanting a mommy for a very long time. Even if it is just for a little while, it is still good." The simple honesty of it broke something in Tasha's chest. She thought about this little girl growing up without a mother, watching other children with their families, wanting something she could not have. "Then I am very happy to be here," Tasha said. Sophie beamed. Then she grabbed Tasha's hand. "Come on, I will show you my butterfly collection. I have 17 different kinds. Well, pictures of them. Daddy says I cannot keep real ones because they need to be free." As Sophie pulled her toward the greenhouse, Tasha looked back at Luca. He stood watching them, his expression unreadable in the late afternoon light, but something in his eyes looked almost grateful. Tasha let herself be led away by the chattering 5-year-old, and for the first time since agreeing to this strange arrangement, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she could actually do this. For 1 week she would be a mother. For 1 week she would give this child what she wanted. It was the least she could do for the man who had saved her life, even if she still was not entirely sure what kind of man he really was. Morning light filtered through the heavy curtains when Tasha woke. For a moment she forgot where she was. The bed was too soft, the room too quiet, the ceiling too far away. Then memory returned in a rush. The eviction notice. Luca Moretti. The mansion. Sophie. She sat up and looked around the elegant room that was hers for the next week. Her clothes hung in the closet. Her mother's cardigan lay across the chair. The envelope with $50,000 sat locked in the desk drawer, real and impossible at the same time. A knock at the door made her jump. "Miss Tasha?" A woman's voice, older and warm. "May I come in?" "Yes," Tasha called, pulling the blanket up self-consciously. The door opened and Diane entered, carrying a tray. She was perhaps 60, with gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. She wore simple clothes and moved with the ease of someone completely comfortable in this house. "Good morning," Diane said, setting the tray on the desk. "I brought you coffee and some breakfast. I did not know what you liked, so I made a little of everything." The tray held coffee, juice, toast fruit, and eggs. More food than Tasha usually ate in a day. "Thank you," Tasha said. "You did not have to do this." "Mr. Moretti asked me to make sure you were comfortable," Diane replied. She studied Tasha with eyes that seemed to see everything. "He told me about the arrangement. I want you to know I think it is kind of you to help." "He is paying me well," Tasha said. "Money is not the same as kindness," Diane said. "You could have said no. Many would have. Sophie is a special child, and she deserves good people around her." There was a warning in those words, gentle but clear. "Hurt Sophie, and you will answer for it." "I will do my best by her," Tasha promised. Diane's expression softened. "I believe you will. Sophie has been up since dawn, asking when you would wake. She is very excited." "Where is she now?" "In the garden, naturally. That child lives outside when she can." Diane moved toward the door, then paused. "A word of advice, if I may." "Please." "Mr. Moretti's life is complicated. There are things in this house you will see and hear. My advice is to see nothing and hear nothing. It is safer that way." The same warning Luca had given, phrased differently but with the same weight. "I understand," Tasha said. "Good. Eat your breakfast. Take your time. Sophie will wait, though not patiently." Diane smiled and left, closing the door quietly. Tasha ate slowly, thinking about warnings and charades and the strange world she had entered. The coffee was perfect, rich and strong. The food was simple but prepared with care. Everything in this house seemed to exist in that space between luxury and restraint. When she finished, she dressed in jeans and a simple blouse, brushed her hair, and went downstairs. The house felt different in daylight, still shadowed and serious, but less intimidating. She could hear birds outside, the distant sound of someone speaking Italian, the quiet hum of a house at work. She found her way to the French doors and stepped into the garden. Sophie spotted her immediately and came running, a book clutched to her chest. "You are awake, finally. I have been waiting forever." Sophie grabbed Tasha's hand. "Come sit with me. I want to show you my butterfly book." She pulled Tasha to a bench under a large oak tree. Sophie climbed up and opened her book, which was filled with photographs and hand-drawn pictures of butterflies. "This is my favorite," Sophie said, pointing to a blue morpho butterfly. "It is blue like the sky. And this one is called a monarch. It travels thousands of miles. Can you imagine? Being so small but going so far." Tasha listened as Sophie explained each butterfly with serious concentration. The child knew scientific names, habitats, life cycles. She spoke with passion and precision, her small face intent. "You know a lot about butterflies," Tasha said. "Daddy got me books," Sophie explained. "He says if I love something, I should learn everything about it." So I did. "Your daddy is a smart man." "He is the smartest," Sophie agreed, "and the strongest, and the best daddy in the whole world." The absolute certainty in her voice made Tasha smile. Whatever Luca Moretti might be in the rest of his life, to his daughter, he was simply perfect. "Sophie," Tasha said carefully, "can I ask you something?" "Okay. Why did you want a mommy for your birthday?" Sophie closed her book and looked down at it, tracing the butterfly on the cover with one finger. "All the other kids at school have mommies," she said quietly. "When they talk about their mommies, I do not have anything to say. And sometimes when I am sad or scared, I want someone who is not daddy. Not because daddy is not good, but because he is daddy. Does that make sense?" "It makes perfect sense," Tasha said softly. "Daddy tries to be everything," Sophie continued, "but he is busy. He has important work. And sometimes I see him sad, and I think maybe he is lonely too. So I thought if I had a mommy, even for a little while, maybe we would all be less lonely. The simple wisdom of it struck Tasha hard. This 5-year-old had wished for a mother not just for herself, but for her father too. You are very thoughtful, Tasha said. Daddy says I think too much for a little kid, Sophie said, but I cannot help it. My brain just works that way. A shadow fell across them. Luca stood there, 2 cups of coffee in hand. He offered one to Tasha. Thank you, she said, taking it. He sat on the bench beside her, and Sophie immediately climbed into his lap, still clutching her butterfly book. Have you been talking Tasha's ear off? Luca asked his daughter. Only a little bit, Sophie said. She asked about mommies. Luca glanced at Tasha over Sophie's head. His expression was carefully neutral. Sophie was explaining why she wanted a mother for her birthday, Tasha said. And what did you think of her reasons? Luca asked. I think she is very wise. Sophie beamed. See, Daddy, I told you she was nice. A phone rang. Luca pulled it from his pocket, glanced at the screen, and his jaw tightened. I need to take this, he said. He lifted Sophie gently and set her on the bench. Stay with Tasha. I will be back soon. He walked toward the house, already speaking in rapid Italian. Tasha watched him go, noting the change in his posture, the sharpness in his voice. Daddy has a lot of important calls, Sophie said matter-of-factly. Sometimes he has to leave in the middle of things, but he always comes back. Does that bother you? Sophie shrugged. It is just how things are. Diane says Daddy has big responsibilities. She says being important means you cannot always do what you want. Such mature words from such a small child. Tasha wondered what else Sophie had learned to accept as normal. They spent the morning together in the garden. Sophie showed Tasha her favorite places, the flowers she had planted, the spot where she had seen a real butterfly land once. They read books. They talked about everything and nothing. Sophie was bright and funny and surprisingly easy to be around. She asked questions constantly, but also knew how to be quiet, content to simply sit together. Around noon, Diane brought lunch to the garden, sandwiches and fruit and lemonade. They ate on a blanket spread on the grass, and Sophie told elaborate stories about the butterflies in her book, giving them names and personalities. Luca did not return. As the afternoon wore on, Tasha noticed Sophie glancing toward the house more frequently, her chatter slowing. Do you think Daddy is okay? Sophie asked finally. I'm sure he is fine, Tasha said. He is probably just busy with work. He promised we would practice my birthday speech, Sophie said, small and disappointed. What speech? I have to give a speech at my party. I wrote it myself, about butterflies and how they transform. Daddy said it was very good, but I need to practice saying it in front of people. I can listen to your speech if you want, Tasha offered. Sophie brightened. Really? Really? Sophie ran to get her notebook, and for the next hour, Tasha listened as the little girl practiced her speech. It was charming and surprisingly poetic, about how butterflies started as caterpillars and became something beautiful through transformation. That was wonderful, Tasha said when Sophie finished. You are going to do great at your party. Do you really think so? I know so. Sophie hugged her suddenly, fiercely. I am glad you are here, she whispered. Tasha hugged her back, feeling something shift in her chest. This was not pretend anymore. This child's happiness mattered to her. Really mattered. When they finally went inside, the sun was setting. Diane was preparing dinner in the kitchen. There was still no sign of Luca. Where is Mr. Moretti? Tasha asked. He had to go out, Diane said carefully. He will be back later. Something in her tone suggested not to ask more. Tasha remembered the warnings. See nothing, hear nothing. After dinner, Tasha helped Sophie with her bath and pajamas. The child's bedroom was on the same floor as Tasha's, decorated with butterflies and books. It felt warm and safe, a child's room in every way. Will you read to me? Sophie asked, climbing into bed. Tasha read 3 books, then sat with Sophie as she drifted towards sleep. Tasha? Sophie murmured, her eyes already closing. Yes? Thank you for practicing with me today. You are very welcome. Will you still be here tomorrow? I will be here every day this week, Tasha promised. Good, Sophie sighed. That is very good. Tasha sat there until Sophie's breathing evened out in sleep. Then she turned off the light and slipped from the room. The house was quiet, dark except for the low wall sconces. Tasha walked back to her own room, thinking about the day, about Sophie's brightness and Luca's absence, and the strange normalcy that had settled over everything. She had been here less than 24 hours, and already it felt like more than just a job. Already Sophie felt like more than just an assignment. Late that night, Tasha heard a car in the driveway. She went to her window and looked down. Luca was getting out of the Maserati, Rocco beside him. Even in the dim light, she could see something wrong with Luca's posture. Stiff, careful. Rocco said something. Luca shook his head. They disappeared into the house. Tasha climbed back into bed and lay there in the dark, thinking about warnings and secrets in the man who had saved her life for reasons she still did not fully understand. Whatever Luca Moretti did in his complicated life, Sophie loved him, and that had to count for something. For the next 6 days, Tasha would be this child's mother. She would give Sophie the happiest birthday possible. She would earn every dollar of the money Luca had paid her, and she would not ask questions about the rest, even though every instinct told her she should. The days began to blend together in a rhythm that felt both strange and natural. Tasha woke each morning in the elegant room, had breakfast with Sophie, spent hours in the garden or reading stories. It was like playing house, except the house was a mansion and the stakes were $100,000. On the third day, Sophie asked the question Tasha had been dreading. They were in the greenhouse, examining a chrysalis Sophie had found. The child held it carefully in her palm, her face serious with concentration. Tasha, Sophie said without looking up, why did my mommy leave? Tasha's breath caught. She glanced toward the garden where Luca stood talking on his phone, too far away to help. I do not know, sweetheart, Tasha said carefully. Sometimes people have reasons we cannot understand. Was it because of me? Sophie's voice was very small. No, Tasha said firmly, kneeling down to Sophie's level. It was never because of you. You are wonderful and smart and kind. If someone left, it was their problem, not yours. Diane says my birth mother could not handle Daddy's life, Sophie said. What does that mean? Tasha chose her words carefully. It means your daddy has a complicated job. Some people are not strong enough for complicated things. But you know what? That means she missed out on knowing an amazing little girl. Sophie was quiet for a moment, still looking at the chrysalis. Do you think she ever thinks about me? I think anyone who knew you would think about you, Tasha said honestly. How could they not? Sophie looked up at her then, dark eyes searching. Will you leave after my birthday? The question pierced Tasha's heart. She had been trying not to think about the end of the week, about going back to her real life and leaving this child behind. That is the plan, Tasha said gently. But what if I do not want you to go? Sophie, what if you could stay? What if you liked it here, and you liked me, and you stayed? Tasha pulled Sophie into a hug, feeling the small body tremble slightly. I already like you, very much. But this is just for your birthday, remember? That was the agreement. Agreements can change, Sophie said stubbornly. Daddy changes agreements all the time in his work. This is different. Why not, Ma? Because I am being paid to pretend. Because your father is a stranger who frightens me. Because this is not real and I cannot let myself forget that. But she could not say any of those things to a 5-year-old who just wanted to be loved. Let us not worry about after, Tasha said instead. Let us just enjoy now, okay? Sophie nodded against her shoulder, but did not look convinced. That evening, after Sophie was in bed, Tasha found herself restless. She wandered the first floor of the house, looking at paintings, running her fingers along furniture that was probably older than she was. She found Luca in a room she had not entered before. The door was open, revealing a study with dark wood paneling and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. He sat behind a massive desk, papers spread before him, a glass of amber liquid at his elbow. He looked up as she hesitated in the doorway. I am sorry, Tasha said. I did not mean to disturb you. You are not disturbing me, Luca said. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. Come in if you like. Tasha entered slowly. The room smelled of leather and old paper and something else. Cigar smoke, maybe, though she did not see any cigars. Photographs lined one shelf. Luca as a younger man with an older couple who must have been his parents. Luca holding a baby Sophie. A family portrait that looked very old. Men in suits standing formally. How is Sophie? Luca asked. She asked about her mother today, Tasha said, sitting down. Luca's expression tightened. What did she ask? Why her mother left, if it was because of her. What did you tell her? That it was never her fault, that some people are not strong enough for complicated lives. Luca nodded slowly. That is true enough. He took a sip from his glass. Her mother was very young when we met, 23. She thought she wanted this life, the security, the protection. But when Sophie came, she realized what it truly meant. The isolation, the secrets, the danger. What happened? She left one night while Sophie slept, Luca said, his voice flat. Left a note, said she could not do it anymore, that she was sorry, but she had to save herself. He paused. I understood. This life is not for everyone. But Sophie does not understand. She just knows her mother chose to leave her. That must be hard for both of you. I would take all of Sophie's pain if I could, Luca said. But I cannot. I can only try to give her everything else. Love, security, happiness where possible. You are a good father, Tasha said. Luca looked at her for a long moment. You are good with her. Better than I expected. She has been happier these past few days than I have seen her in months. She is easy to love. Yes, Luca agreed quietly. She is. Somewhere in the house, a phone rang. Luca glanced at his watch and frowned. I am sorry, he said. I need to take this. Of course, Tasha stood to leave, but Luca's voice stopped her. Tasha, he said, thank you, truly. You are giving Sophie something I could not give her myself. I will not forget that. Tasha nodded and left the study. As she climbed the stairs, she heard Luca's voice change, becoming harder, colder. Speaking Italian again, the words clipped and sharp. She remembered Diane's warning. See nothing, hear nothing. But it was getting harder to pretend she did not notice things. The men who came to the house at odd hours. The phone calls that made Luca's face turn to stone. The way Rocco watched everything with those flat, dangerous eyes. On the fourth day, something happened that made the pretending impossible. It was late afternoon. Sophie was napping, worn out from playing in the garden. Tasha was in her room reading when she heard voices downstairs. Not unusual, except these voices were raised. Angry. She went to her door and opened it carefully. 3 men stood in the entrance hall with Rocco and another guard she did not know. They wore expensive suits, but their faces were hard, dangerous. One was gesturing sharply, speaking in rapid Italian. Then Luca descended the stairs. The change in him was immediate and absolute. The gentle father disappeared. In his place stood someone else, someone cold and commanding. He spoke one word, quiet but sharp as a blade, and the 3 men fell silent. Tasha watched from the shadows of the upstairs hallway as Luca spoke to them. She could not understand the words, but she understood the dynamic. These were not business associates. These were men who feared Luca, who had come to him for something, or perhaps to explain something. The conversation went on for several minutes. At one point, one of the men tried to argue. Luca stepped closer to him, not touching, just closing the distance. His voice dropped even lower. Tasha could not hear what he said, but the man paled and nodded quickly. Then Luca gestured toward the door, and the 3 men left. Fast, Rocco said something. Luca replied, then turned and looked directly at the shadows where Tasha stood hidden. You can come out, he said in English. I know you are there. Tasha stepped forward, her heart pounding. She descended the stairs slowly. Luca waited at the bottom, his expression unreadable. I am sorry, she said. I heard voices. And now you are curious, Luca said. It was not a question. No, I am not asking. But you are wondering. He studied her face. Come with me. He led her back to his study and closed the door. He poured himself another drink, but did not offer her one. Instead, he stood at the window, looking out at the garden where Sophie had played hours earlier. I told you not to ask about my work, Luca said. I did not ask. But you saw. And seeing is almost the same thing. He turned to face her. I cannot explain what you witnessed, but I need to know, will it be a problem? A problem? Will you leave? Break our arrangement? Take Sophie's birthday away because you are frightened of what you do not understand? Tasha thought about it. She should be frightened. Those men had looked dangerous, and Luca had looked even more dangerous. Everything about this situation screamed that she should run. But then she thought about Sophie napping upstairs, about her speech she was still practicing, about the way she hugged Tasha every morning like she was afraid Tasha might disappear. I made a promise, Tasha said. To Sophie and to you, I keep my promises. Even when you are scared? Especially then. Luca studied her for a long moment. Something in his expression shifted. Respect maybe, or surprise. You are braver than you think, he said quietly. Or more foolish. Perhaps both. He moved to his desk and pulled out an envelope. Not money this time, but photographs. He hesitated, then held them out to her. If you are going to be in this house, you should understand why I do what I do, he said. Tasha took the photos. They showed a younger Luca with his parents, a restaurant, people eating and laughing. Then more photos. The same restaurant, but destroyed. Windows broken, tables overturned. My father owned that restaurant, Luca said. Worked his whole life to build it. Then someone decided he should pay for protection. My father refused, so they burned it down. He died trying to save it. Tasha looked up at him. I was 18, Luca continued. My mother died of grief 6 months later. I had a choice. Run or take my father's place. Make sure no one could hurt my family again. He took the photos back. I chose to stay. I chose to become what was necessary to protect what was mine. You became what those men were, Tasha said quietly. No, Luca said sharply. I became what stops those men. There is a difference. I have rules. I do not hurt innocents. I do not prey on the weak. I provide protection to those who need it, and I punish those who break faith. That is all. Is that what those men did? Break faith? They thought they could skim from what they owed. They were wrong. Luca put the photos away. I do not expect you to approve, but I needed you to understand everything I do for family, for Sophie, so she never has to be afraid. Tasha thought about her own mother, the medical bills that would have destroyed them both, about how desperate she had been, about how this man had saved her without knowing her simply because his daughter smiled at a stranger. I understand, she said. Do you? My mother was dying and no one cared, Tasha said. The hospital cared about money. The creditors cared about payments. No one cared that she was a person, that I was drowning. Then you appeared and fixed everything because your daughter needed something new. So yes, I understand doing what is necessary for family. Luca looked at her with something like surprise. You truly do. I do not have to understand all of it, Tasha said. I just have to know you are good to Sophie, and you are. Whatever else you might be, you love your daughter. That is enough for me. A phone buzzed. Luca glanced at it and sighed. I have to go out tonight, he said. There is a situation that needs handling. I will not be back until very late. Okay? Rocco will be here. If you need anything, ask him. If anything seems wrong, anything at all, you go to Sophie's room and you lock the door. Understand? A chill went down Tasha's spine. You think something might happen? No, Luca said, but I prepare for possibilities. That is how I keep people safe. He walked to the door, then paused and looked back at her. 3 more days, he said. 3 more days and Sophie has her birthday. Then you can go back to your life and forget all of this. Will Sophie be able to forget? Luca's jaw tightened. She will have to. Then he was gone. Tasha stood alone in the study, surrounded by books and shadows and the lingering smell of cigar smoke at Demone. She thought about dangerous men and broken restaurants and a 5-year-old girl who just wanted to be loved. She thought about leaving, taking her money and running before things got more complicated. But then she thought about Sophie's face when she practiced her speech, about the trust in her eyes when she asked Tasha to read just one more book, about the way she hugged like she was trying to memorize the feeling. 3 more days. Tasha could do 3 more days, even if those days came with secrets she did not want and danger she did not understand. She left the study and went upstairs. Sophie was awake, sitting in bed with her butterfly book. There you are, Sophie said. I had a dream about a butterfly that could talk. Can we draw it? Of course we can, Tasha said, sitting beside her arm. And for the rest of the evening, they drew talking butterflies and made up stories and pretended that everything was simple and safe and normal. Even though Tasha now knew it was anything but, the morning of Sophie's birthday arrived with golden sunshine and nervous energy. Tasha woke early to find the household already in motion. Diane was directing workers who were setting up tables in the garden. Rocco supervised security, and Sophie was practically vibrating with excitement. "It is my birthday," she announced, bursting into Tasha's room before Tasha had even gotten out of bed. "I am 5 years old today." "That is a whole hand." She held up 5 fingers, grinning. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," Tasha said, pulling her into a hug. Sophie squeezed her tight. "Is it time for presents yet?" "After breakfast," your father said. "Daddy is already awake. He has been awake since forever, making sure everything is perfect." Sophie bounced on the bed. "He does that every year. Gets up super early and checks everything a million times." Tasha smiled at the image of Luca, the dangerous man from last night, fussing over birthday party details like any other father. They went downstairs together. The house had been transformed. Purple and blue streamers hung from doorways. Butterfly decorations covered every surface. The dining room table was set for a special birthday breakfast. Luca stood in the kitchen talking to Diane. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked tired but softened when Sophie ran to him. "Papa," she shouted, using the Italian word she saved for special moments. "Everything looks so beautiful." "Only the best for my birthday girl," Luca said, lifting her easily. 5 years old. When did you get so big?" "I grew," Sophie said seriously. "That is what children do." Luca laughed, and the sound transformed his face. Tasha saw what he must have been like before life made him hard. Young and open and easy. "Come," he said, setting Sophie down. "Breakfast first, then presents, then we prepare for your party." Breakfast was pancakes shaped like butterflies, Sophie's favorite fruit, and hot chocolate with whipped cream. Sophie talked nonstop, too excited to eat much. She told them about her dream where she could fly like a butterfly. She asked if the caterpillar she had been watching would emerge today as a birthday present to her. She wanted to know if all her friends from school would definitely come. Everyone said yes, Luca assured her. 23 children and their parents. Tasha felt her stomach tighten. 23 children meant 40-plus adults. All pretending to be Luca's wife in front of that many people suddenly felt much more real and much more dangerous. Luca seemed to sense her tension. He caught her eye and gave a small nod. "You can do this," his look said. After breakfast, they moved to the living room for presents. Sophie sat surrounded by gifts, her eyes huge. There were dolls and books and art supplies, a new bicycle with training wheels, a telescope because she had mentioned once that she wanted to see the stars better. But the last present made her gasp. A glass case containing a preserved butterfly, blue and iridescent and perfect. "It is a blue morpho," Luca said quietly, "from the Amazon. It lived its full life and died naturally. Now it can stay beautiful forever." Sophie's eyes filled with tears. "It is perfect, Papa. It is the most perfect thing ever." She hugged him so hard Luca's eyes closed, and Tasha saw something raw and vulnerable cross his face. Love so intense it was almost painful. "I will treasure it always," Sophie whispered. The morning passed in a blur of preparation. Sophie wanted to help with everything, so Tasha found tasks for her. They arranged flowers. They set out plates. They tested the butterfly piñata to make sure it would break properly. Diane worked miracles in the kitchen. A 3-tier cake decorated to look like a butterfly garden emerged, perfect and beautiful. There were sandwiches cut into butterfly shapes, fruit arranged in flower patterns. Everything Sophie had dreamed of. Guests began arriving at 2 o'clock. Tasha stood beside Luca at the entrance, her heart pounding as they greeted people together. Most were parents from Sophie's school, normal families with normal lives. But some were different. Men who arrived in expensive cars with hard eyes that assessed everything. They greeted Luca with respect that bordered on fear. His world and Sophie's world, colliding. "You must be Tasha," one mother said warmly. "Sophie talks about you all the time. She is so happy to have you here." "Thank you," Tasha managed. "We are happy to be celebrating together." The lie came easier than she expected. Or maybe it was not entirely a lie. She was happy to celebrate Sophie's birthday. That part was real. Luca's hand settled on her lower back, light but possessive, playing the role of devoted husband. His touch sent an unexpected shiver through her. "Shall we?" he murmured, gesturing toward the garden where children were already running wild. The party was chaos in the best way. Children played games, chased each other through the garden, screamed with delight when the piñata broke and candy rained down. Sophie was at the center of it all, radiant with joy. Tasha found herself relaxing despite her nerves. Parents chatted with her easily, asking how long she and Luca had been together, how they met. She stuck to vague answers that Luca had coached her on. They met through mutual friends. It was love at first sight. They kept things quiet at first because of his work. Half-truths wrapped around lies, wrapped around one actual truth. Watching Sophie, Tasha felt genuine affection. That part needed no pretending. Luca moved through the crowd with easy authority. He was charming when needed, courteous to everyone, attentive to Sophie's every need. But Tasha noticed how some of the harder-looking men would pull him aside for brief, intense conversations. Business, even at his daughter's birthday party. One man in particular caught Tasha's attention. He was older, perhaps 60, with silver hair and a face that had seen too much. He arrived late without family, and Luca's whole posture changed when he saw him. They spoke in a corner of the garden, voices too low to carry. The man handed Luca something small that disappeared into Luca's pocket. Then he left without saying goodbye to Sophie, without eating cake, without pretending this was anything other than what it was. Tasha looked away quickly when Luca glanced in her direction. See nothing, hear nothing. "Mommy!" Sophie's voice cut through her thoughts. "It is time for my speech." Tasha's heart clenched at the word mommy, said so naturally, as if it were true. Everyone gathered around as Sophie stood on a small platform Luca had set up. She looked tiny up there but determined, her notebook clutched in both hands. "Thank you everyone for coming to my birthday," Sophie began, her voice clear and strong. "I am 5 years old today, and I have been learning about butterflies. Did you know that butterflies start as caterpillars? They are small and they crawl on the ground. But then something amazing happens. They build a chrysalis, and inside they transform. When they come out, they can fly." She paused, looking at her notes, then looked up at the crowd. "I think people can transform too," she continued. "Maybe not with wings, but in other ways. My papa says that sometimes life is hard, but we can become something beautiful anyway. He says that being brave means choosing to grow even when it is scary, like the caterpillar choosing to change, even though it does not know what it will become." Tasha felt tears sting her eyes. Beside her, Luca had gone very still. "This year, I learned that families can transform too," Sophie said, her eyes finding Tasha. "Sometimes people come into your life when you need them, and they help you become something better. They help you flip wasi. So today I want to thank my papa for always believing I could fly, and Tasha for helping me learn how." The crowd applauded. Parents smiled and whispered about how articulate she was, but Tasha could barely breathe past the lump in her throat. Sophie climbed down and ran straight to Tasha, wrapping her arms around her waist. "Did I do good?" she whispered. "You did perfect," Tasha whispered back, holding her tight. When she looked up, Luca was watching them. The expression on his face was complicated, grateful, sad, something else she could not name. The cake came next. Sophie blew out 5 candles and made a wish she refused to tell anyone. They ate and played more games, and the afternoon stretched into evening. As parents started collecting their tired children and saying their goodbyes, one woman approached Tasha. "You are so good with Sophie," she said. "Luca is lucky to have found you. That man has been alone too long." "Thank you," Tasha said softly. "And Sophie needed a mother," the woman continued. "Every little girl does. I am glad she has you now." The words were kind, but they cut deep, because Sophie did not have her. Not really, not beyond this week. In 2 more days, Tasha would leave, and Sophie would be alone again with her father and his complicated, dangerous life. After the last guest left, Sophie crashed hard. One moment she was helping clean up, The next she was yawning so wide Tasha could see her tonsils. "Time for bed, birthday girl," Luca said, scooping her up. "But I am not tired," Sophie protested, even as her eyes drooped closed. "Of course not," Luca agreed solemnly. "You are just resting your eyes." Tasha followed them upstairs. Together, she and Luca got Sophie into pajamas and tucked into bed. The child barely made it through one bedtime story before she was asleep, the blue Morpho case on her nightstand where she could see it first thing in the morning. Luca stood beside the bed for a long moment, looking down at his daughter. Then he leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Sweet dreams, little one," he whispered. They left the room quietly, pulling the door almost closed behind them. In the hallway, they stood in awkward silence. "Thank you," Luca said finally. Today was everything she wanted. "She is a special child," Tasha replied. "Yes," Luca agreed. "She is." He hesitated, then said, "Her speech, when she talked about transformation and families, she meant you." "I know. 2 more days," Luca said, his voice tight. "Then you leave, and I have to explain to her why another mother walked away." The accusation in his words stung. "That is not fair. This was your arrangement, not mine." "I know," Luca said tiredly. "I am not blaming you. I am blaming myself. I thought I could give her one perfect birthday. I did not think about what comes after." "What does come after?" Tasha asked. Luca looked at her for a long moment. "I do not know," he admitted. "For the first time in a very long time, I do not have a plan." He walked away, heading downstairs where Rocco and the cleaning crew were still working. Tasha went to her own room and sat on the bed, emotionally exhausted. Sophie's speech replayed in her mind. Sometimes people come into your life when you need them, and they help you become something better. Tasha thought about herself 2 weeks ago, sitting on concrete steps with eviction notices, hopeless and broken. She thought about how much had changed in such a short time. She thought about Sophie, who had wished for a mother and somehow gotten exactly what she wanted, even if just for a little while. And she thought about Luca, who loved his daughter so much he had hired a stranger to give her one happy birthday, who lived in shadows but built butterfly gardens, who was dangerous and gentle in equal measure. 2 more days. Then this strange dream would end and she would return to real life. But as Tasha lay in bed that night, she wondered if real life would feel real anymore, or if some part of her would stay here always, in this house with its secrets and its sadness and its unexpected moments of joy. Tomorrow was day 6, the day after was day 7. Then the arrangement ended. She had thought she was ready for that. Now she was not so sure. The morning after the party dawned quiet and gray. Tasha woke with a heaviness in her chest that had nothing to do with the weather. Day 6, one more day after this, and the arrangement would be complete. She would take her money and leave, and Sophie would wake up to discover another mother had disappeared from her life. The thought made Tasha feel sick. She dressed slowly, putting off the inevitable moment when she would have to face Sophie, face Luca, face the fact that she had let herself care about people she was supposed to be pretending with. When she finally went downstairs, she found Sophie at the kitchen table with Diane, both of them looking at photos from yesterday's party on Diane's phone. Sophie's face was bright with leftover joy. "Tasha," Sophie called, "look at this picture. You and me and Papa all together by the cake. We look like a real family." The words were innocent, but they cut deep. Tasha came to look at the photo. Sophie was right. In the image, Luca had his arm around Tasha's shoulders while Sophie stood in front of them, all three smiling. They did look like a real family, not an arrangement, not a business transaction, just 3 people who belonged together. "It is a beautiful picture," Tasha said softly. "Diane is going to print it for me," Sophie said. "I am going to put it in a frame in my room, so I can always remember my best birthday ever. Always remember. Like a memorial. Like something that was already over." "Where is your father?" Tasha asked. "He had to go out early," Diane said, and something in her tone made Tasha look at her sharply. The older woman's face was carefully neutral, but her eyes held worry. "Is everything okay?" "Fine," Diane said quickly, too quickly. "Just business. He will be back soon." But noon came and went with no sign of Luca. Sophie worked on a puzzle with Tasha, chattered about school starting next week, asked if Tasha could help her organize her new toys. Normal 5-year-old things, except every so often she would glance toward the door, waiting for her father. By 2 o'clock, Tasha could feel the tension radiating from Diane. The housekeeper kept checking her phone, kept looking out windows, kept finding reasons to walk past the front entrance. Diane, Tasha said quietly when Sophie was in the bathroom. What is going on? Nothing, Diane said. Please. I have been here almost a week. I know when something is wrong. Diane looked at her for a long moment, then sighed. There was a situation with some business associates. Mr. Moretti went to handle it this morning. He said he would be back by noon. And he is not back. He is not answering his phone. Fear twisted in Tasha's stomach. Should we call someone? The police advised. Diane actually laughed, though there was no humor in it. The police cannot help with this kind of trouble. Then what do we do? We wait, Diane said, and we keep Sophie from worrying. But Sophie was too smart not to notice. As the afternoon dragged on, she grew quieter, more anxious. She wanted to stay near the front windows. She asked repeatedly when Papa would be home. Tasha ran out of reassuring answers. At 4 o'clock, Rocco appeared. His face was grim. Mr. Moretti called, well, he said. He will be delayed. He asked me to tell Sophie he is sorry he is missing dinner. Is he safe? Tasha asked. Rocco's eyes flicked to her, assessing. He is handling things. That is all you need to know. Did he say when he would be back? No. Rocco left before she could ask more questions. Tasha found Sophie curled up on the couch in the living room, hugging her butterfly book. Papa is not coming home for dinner, Sophie said, her voice small. He got held up with work, Tasha said, sitting beside her. But he will be home as soon as he can. He promised Rocco. He always comes home for dinner, Sophie said. Always, unless something is really wrong. Tasha pulled Sophie into her lap, holding her close. Your papa is very strong and very smart. He will be fine. You do not know that. She was right. Tasha did not know that. She did not know anything about Luca's world, about the dangers he faced, about what kind of situation could keep him away this long. They ate dinner without him. Sophie barely touched her food. Afterward, Tasha tried to distract her with games and stories, but Sophie's attention kept drifting to the window, to the driveway, waiting. At 8 o'clock, Tasha put Sophie to bed. The child clung to her, tears finally spilling over. What if he does not come back? Sophie whispered. What if something bad happened? Your father will come back, Tasha said firmly. He would never leave you. You are his whole world. Promise? Tasha knew she should not promise something she could not control. But looking at Sophie's terrified face, she could not help herself. I promise, she said, your papa loves you too much to ever not come home. Sophie finally fell asleep, but fitfully, jerking awake at every small sound. Tasha sat beside her bed for hours, stroking her hair, murmuring reassurances. When Sophie was truly asleep, Tasha went downstairs. The house felt emptier without Luca's presence. Bigger, colder. She found Diane in the kitchen, drinking tea and staring at nothing. Still no word? Tasha asked. Diane shook her head. Rocco went to help. He said if we do not hear anything by midnight, we should assume the worst. Assume the worst, Tasha repeated. What does that mean? It means Mr. Moretti might not come home tonight, Diane said quietly. It means Sophie might wake up tomorrow with just us. Tasha sat down heavily. This is his life. This is what he does. Yes, Diane said, and Sophie has learned to live with it. But it never gets easier, especially not for a child. How do you stand it? Tasha asked. 20 years, you said. 20 years of watching him risk himself? Because he is a good man, Diane said simply. He does not do what he does for power or money. He does it because his father could not protect his family, and Luca swore no one would hurt those he loves ever again. That includes me. That includes everyone who works for him. We are his family, and he keeps us safe, even when it costs him. Even when it might cost him his life, Tasha said. Even then. They sat in silence, waiting. Tasha thought about Luca's hands, scarred from work she did not understand, about his controlled voice and careful words, about the way he looked at Sophie like she was everything precious in the world. 10 o'clock passed. 11. Tasha could not sit still any longer. She went to Luca's study, needing to feel closer to him somehow. The room smelled like him, leather and smoke, and something else she could not name. She looked at the photographs on the shelf. Young Luca with his parents, baby Sophie, his family. She found herself standing at his desk, running her fingers over the dark wood. Papers were stacked neatly. A fountain pen lay beside them. Everything organized and controlled, just like the man himself. At 11:45, headlights swept through the window. Tasha ran to the front entrance, her heart pounding. A black car pulled up. The door opened and Luca climbed out, moving stiffly. Even from a distance, she could see the tension in his body, the exhaustion in his posture. Rocco was with him, supporting his arm. As they came into the light, Tasha saw why. Luca's shirt was torn at the shoulder. Dried blood darkened the fabric. His face was bruised along the jaw. "Oh my God," Tasha breathed. Luca looked up and saw her standing in the doorway. Surprise flickered across his face, followed by something else. "You should not see this," he said, his voice rough. "Too late," Tasha said. She moved forward, taking his other arm. "Come on, let us get you inside." Together, she and Rocco helped Luca into the house. Diane appeared with a first aid kit, her face lined with worry, but her hands steady. "It looks worse than it is," Luca said as they settled him in a chair in his study. "The situation is handled. Everyone is safe." "You are bleeding," Tasha said. "Surface wound. I have had worse." That was supposed to be reassuring, but it just made Tasha's hands shake as she helped Diane cut away his ruined shirt. The wound on his shoulder was indeed not deep, but it was angry and bruised. Someone had hit him hard, or shot at him and nearly connected. Tasha did not want to know which. "I should have been home for Sophie's dinner," Luca said as Diane cleaned the wound. He did not flinch, though it had to hurt. "She must be worried." "She is," Tasha said. "She cried herself to sleep waiting for you." Luca's jaw tightened, pain that had nothing to do with his shoulder crossing his face. "I will go to her." "You will sit still and let me finish," Diane said firmly. "She is asleep. You can see her when you are not bleeding on my clean floors." Despite everything, Luca smiled slightly. "Yes, Diane." It took 20 minutes to clean and bandage the wound properly. Rocco reported that the situation was truly resolved, that there would be no more trouble tonight. Then he left, and Diane went to dispose of the bloody cloths, leaving Tasha alone with Luca. He sat back in his chair, shirtless and bandaged, looking exhausted, but his eyes were clear as they found Tasha's face. "You were waiting for me," he said. "Sophie needed to know if you were coming home." "And you? Did you need to know?" Tasha thought about lying, then decided there had been enough pretending. "Yes, I needed to know." Luca studied her for a long moment. "You should not care," he said quietly. "You should take your money in 2 days and forget all of this. Forget me. Is that what you want?" "What I want does not matter. What is safe for you matters." "Let me decide what is safe for Mom," Tasha said. "You do not understand my world." "Then explain it to me." Luca shook his head. "The more you know, the more danger you are in." "I am already in danger," Tasha said. "I live in your house. I sleep in your guest room. I pretend to be your wife. If your enemies wanted to hurt you through me, they already could." Luca's face went hard. "No one will hurt you. I would never allow it." "You cannot control everything," Tasha said. "Tonight proved that." "Tonight was different. Tonight was someone trying to take what is mine. I settled it. Permanently." The way he said permanently sent a chill down Tasha's spine. She did not ask what that meant, did not want to know. "Sophie needs you," Tasha said instead. "She needs you to come home, to be safe, to be here." "I know." "Then maybe you should think about that, about what you risk every time you go out to settle situations, about what it would do to her if you did not come back one night." Luca's expression turned pained. "You think I do not think about that? Every single day? But I have no choice. This is my life. This is what I am." "People can change," Tasha said. "Transform, like Sophie said, like butterflies." "Butterflies are born to transform," Luca said. "Men like me are born to do what must be done. There is no transformation for us, only duty." Tasha wanted to argue, but she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the pain he was holding at bay. This was not the time. "Come on," she said, "and let us check on Sophie. She needs to see that you are home." They walked upstairs together. Luca moved carefully, favoring his injured shoulder. At Sophie's door, he paused and looked at Tasha. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for staying, for waiting, for caring about her." "It is not hard to care about Sophie," Tasha said. "She makes it easy." "And me?" Luca asked. "Do I make it easy?" Tasha looked at him, this complicated, dangerous man with his gentle hands and his wounded shoulder and his desperate love for his daughter. "No," she admitted. "You make it terrifying." Luca's mouth quirked in something almost like a smile. "Good. You should be terrified. It is smarter than whatever this is." He opened Sophie's door. The little girl was curled under her blankets, the blue Morpho case glinting in the moonlight from her window. Luca moved to her bedside and knelt down carefully. "Sophie," he whispered, "Papa is home." Ovi's eyes flew open. For a moment, she just stared as if not believing he was real. Then she threw her arms around his neck, sobbing. "I thought you were not coming back," she cried. "I thought something bad happened." "I am here," Luca murmured, holding her close with his good arm. "I am here, little one. I am sorry I scared you." "Do not ever do that again," Sophie demanded, her voice fierce despite the tears. "I will try my best. Promise me." Luca hesitated, and Tasha saw the war on his face, the desire to give his daughter the promise she needed versus the knowledge that he could not keep it. "I promise I will always fight to come home to you," he said finally. "Always." It was not quite what Sophie asked for, but she seemed to accept it. She clung to him, and he held her, rocking slightly. Tasha watched from the doorway, her heart aching. After a while, Sophie's grip loosened as sleep reclaimed her. Luca laid her back down gently, tucking the blankets around her. He stood there for a long moment watching her breathe. Then he turned and walked past Tasha into the hallway, closing the door softly behind him. They stood facing each other in the dim corridor. Tomorrow was day 7, the last day. Then Tasha would leave, and this strange chapter of all their lives would close. "I should go," Tasha said. "You need rest." "Wait," Luca said. He reached out and caught her hand, his fingers warm around hers. "Stay." "Stay?" "Not forever, I know you cannot. But tomorrow, one more day after this. Let Sophie have that. Let me have that." Tasha looked down at their joined hands. She should pull away. Should remind him this was business, just an arrangement. Should protect herself from whatever was growing between them. But she did not pull away. "Okay," she said. "One more day." Luca's fingers tightened around hers briefly, then released. "Thank you." He walked to his own room, moving like every step hurt. Tasha went to hers and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. One more day. Then she would leave with her $100,000 and return to her real life. But as she finally drifted towards sleep, she could not shake the feeling that her real life was somehow here now. In this house with its secrets. With Sophie who needed her. With Luca who frightened and fascinated her in equal measure. One more day, then everything would change again. She just did not know if she was ready for it. The 7th day began with a sense of finality hanging in the air like morning mist. Tasha woke knowing this was her last full day in the Moretti house. Tomorrow morning, she would pack her things, accept the final payment, and return to her own life. The thought should have brought relief. Instead, it brought an ache she did not want to examine too closely. She found Luca already at the breakfast table, his shoulder bandaged beneath a fresh shirt. He looked tired but alert, sipping coffee and reading something on his phone. He glanced up when she entered. "Good morning," and he said, "How is it your shoulder?" "Fine, I have had worse." There was that phrase again. Tasha wondered how many times he had been hurt, how many scars he carried beneath his clothes. She wondered what it cost him to live this life, and if he ever wished he could be someone different. Sophie bounded in wearing her favorite butterfly pajamas, still half asleep but smiling. She climbed into Luca's lap carefully, mindful of his injury even in her drowsy state. "Morning, Papa," she mumbled. "Morning, Tasha." "Good morning, sweetheart," Tasha said, pouring herself coffee. They ate breakfast together, the three of them, and it felt painfully normal, like any family on any morning. Sophie chattered about wanting to check on her caterpillar. Luca reminded her about a dentist appointment next week. Tasha listened and added comments and tried not to think about how this was the last time. After breakfast, Luca's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression hardened. I need to take this, he said, standing. He looked at Tasha. Could you stay with Sophie today? I have things to handle. Of course, Tasha said, even as worry twisted in her stomach. More situations, more danger, more reasons he might not come home. Luca disappeared into his study. Tasha helped Sophie get dressed, and they went to the garden to check on the chrysalis. It still had not emerged, much to Sophie's disappointment. Maybe today, Sophie said hopefully, peering at it closely. The book says it should be any day now. Nature has its own schedule, Tasha said. We cannot rush transformation. I know, Sophie sighed, but waiting is hard. They spent the morning reading and drawing. Sophie made pictures of butterflies for Tasha to take with her, though neither of them mentioned that directly. Around noon, Diane brought lunch to the garden. How is Mr. Moretti? Tasha asked quietly while Sophie was occupied with her sandwich. Busy, Diane said. He has been on the phone all morning. Something is happening. I can feel it. Something bad. With his work, it is always bad, Diane said. The question is how bad. The afternoon dragged on with no sign of Luca. Sophie grew quieter as the hours passed, more anxious. She asked 3 times when Papa would be done with his work. Tasha had no answers. At 5 o'clock, Rocco appeared at the garden entrance. His face was grim. Mr. Moretti needs to go out, he said to Tasha. He asked me to tell you he will be back for dinner. Where is he going? Rocco's expression said clearly that was not her business. He will be back for dinner, he repeated. But dinner came and went with no Luca. Sophie picked at her food, worry written across her small face. He said he would be here, she said. He promised Rocco. Sometimes things take longer than expected, Tasha said, though she felt her own anxiety rising. After dinner, they went to Sophie's room. Tasha read stories and tried to keep Sophie distracted. But the child's eyes kept drifting to her door, waiting for her father's footsteps. At 8 o'clock, Sophie was still awake, too worried to sleep. What if something bad happens again? She whispered. Like last night? Your father is strong, Tasha said, and smart. He will be fine. You do not know that. She was right. Tasha did not know that. She did not know anything about where Luca was, or what he was doing, or what dangers he faced. At 8:30, Sophie finally dozed off, exhausted from worry. Tasha sat beside her bed, unwilling to leave her alone. Her mind kept drifting to Luca, to his scarred hands and tired eyes, to the way he had looked last night, bleeding and exhausted, but determined. At 9 o'clock, she heard a car in the driveway. Tasha slipped from Sophie's room and went to the window at the end of the hall. The black Maserati pulled up to the house. Luca got out, and even from this distance, she could see something was wrong. He moved stiffly, one hand pressed to his ribs. Rocco was with him, and another man she did not recognize. They spoke briefly, then the other man left. Rocco helped Luca toward the entrance. Tasha ran downstairs and met them at the door. Luca's face was pale, his jaw tight with pain. His knuckles were split and bleeding. His shirt was torn at the side, and when he moved, she saw him wince. What happened? Tasha demanded. Nothing, Luca said through gritted teeth. Just business. That is not nothing, Tasha said. Whoa, Rocco, what happened? Rocco looked at Luca, waiting for permission. Luca gave a small nod. There was a disagreement, Rocco said carefully. About territory. It got physical. Mr. Moretti handled it. Handled it by getting hurt, Tasha said angrily. She took Luca's arm. Come on, study. Now, Diane appeared with the first aid kit again. Together, they got Luca into his study and into a chair. This time when they removed his shirt, Tasha saw the full extent of the damage. His ribs were already bruising purple and black. His knuckles were raw. A cut along his collarbone still seeped blood. You need a doctor, Tasha said. No doctors, Luca said. Diane can handle it. Your ribs could be broken. They are bruised. I have had broken ribs before. This is not that. Tasha wanted to scream at him, at his casual acceptance of violence, at the way he spoke about injuries like they were ordinary, at the fact that he kept putting himself in danger while his daughter waited at home, terrified. But she did not scream. Instead, she helped Diane clean the wounds, her hands shaking with anger and fear. This is insane, Tasha said as she worked. You have a daughter who needs you. You cannot keep doing this. I do what I must, Luca said. His voice was strained but steady. No, you do what you choose. There is a difference. You do not understand. Then make me understand, Tasha said, looking up at him. Explain to me why you keep risking your life, why you come home bleeding, why you put Sophie through this worry over and over. Luca was quiet for a long moment. Diane finished bandaging his ribs and silently left the room, giving them privacy. Do you know what my father's last words to me were? Luca finally said. He was lying in the rubble of his restaurant, dying, and he looked at me and said, protect the family, whatever it costs. So you became this, Tasha said. You became dangerous. I became what was necessary, Luca corrected. I took my father's place. I built power. I made sure no one could hurt us again. And it worked. Sophie has never gone hungry. She has never been afraid in her own home. She has everything she needs. Except a father who comes home safe, Tasha said quietly. The words hit home. She could see it in the way Luca's face tightened, the way his hands curled into fists despite the pain it must cause. I am doing my best, he said. I know you are, Tasha said. But your best might not be enough if you do not come home one night. Sophie needs more than money and security. She needs you, alive, here. I know that, Luca said roughly. Do you think I do not know that? Every time I walk out that door, I am terrified I will not come back. Terrified of what it would do to her, but I have responsibilities. People who depend on me. A world I cannot just walk away from. Why not? Tasha asked. Why can you not just leave? Take Sophie and go somewhere safe. Start over. Because men like me do not get to start over, Luca said. We made our choices long ago. We live with them until we die. That is not true. It is, Luca insisted. The only way out of this life is death or prison. Those are the options. There is no retirement, no walking away. The moment I try, someone will see weakness. They will come for me, for Sophie, for everyone I have ever protected. I cannot allow that. Tasha looked at him, this man who carried such weight, who loved his daughter so fiercely but felt trapped by the very power he had built to protect her. Then what happens? Tasha asked. You just keep doing this until eventually you do not come home? Until Sophie grows up without a father? I pray it does not come to that, Luca said quietly. Prayer is not enough. It is all I have. They sat in heavy silence. Tasha's anger was draining away, replaced by something sadder. Hopelessness for a situation she could not fix. You should go, Luca said finally. Tomorrow, as planned. Take your money. Go back to your life. Forget about this place and what happens here. Is that what you want? Luca looked at her for a long moment. What I want does not matter. What is right for you matters. And staying here in this world is not right for anyone. Sophie wants me to stay. Sophie is 5 years old. She does not understand. She understands more than you think, Tasha said. She told me she wished for a mother not just for herself, but for you, because she sees how lonely you are. Luca's expression cracked slightly. I did not know she thought that. She worries about you. She wants you to be happy. I am happy when she is happy, Luca said. That is enough. Is it? Tasha challenged. Is it really enough? Or are you just convincing yourself of that because it is easier than admitting you want more? Luca stood up abruptly, wincing at the movement. This conversation is over. Luca, please, he said, and there was something raw in his voice. Just go. Let tomorrow be simple. Let us all just pretend one more day, and then you leave and we go back to how things were. What if I do not want to pretend anymore? Tasha asked. Luca froze. He turned back to look at her, his expression carefully neutral. What are you saying? I am saying this week was supposed to be a job, just an arrangement, but somewhere along the way it became real for me. Sophie became real. You became real, and the thought of leaving tomorrow makes me feel sick. Tasha, Luca said carefully, you do not know what you are saying. Yes, I do, she insisted. I know this is complicated. I know your life is dangerous. I know I should be smart and take my money and run, but I cannot stop thinking about Sophie waking up tomorrow to find me gone. I cannot stop thinking about you, alone in this big house, carrying all this weight by yourself. You cannot stay, Luca said firmly. It is not safe. Let me decide what is safe for me. No, Luca said. I will not put you at risk. I will not let you tie yourself to this life, to me, out of some misplaced sense of obligation or temporary emotion. This is not temporary, Tasha said, standing to face him. This is real. What I feel for Sophie is real. What I feel for you is real. The words hung between them, impossible to take back. Luca closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, they were full of longing and regret in equal measure. Even if that is true, he said quietly, it changes nothing. You still need to leave, for your sake and for mine. Why? Tasha demanded. Why push me away when we both want the same thing? Because I cannot protect you, Luca said, and his voice broke slightly. I came home tonight with bruised ribs and bleeding knuckles, and I was lucky. It could have been so much worse. And if you are here, if you are part of my life, then you become a target. Anyone who wants to hurt me will hurt you first. I cannot live with that risk. I can, Tasha said. Well, I cannot, Luca said sharply. I already failed one woman. Sophie's mother left because I could not keep her safe enough, could not give her a normal enough life. I will not fail another. I will not watch you slowly break under the weight of this world. I will not see fear in your eyes every time I leave. I will not make you into what I almost made her. I am not her, Tasha said. I am stronger than you think. I do not doubt your strength, Luca said. I doubt my own. I doubt my ability to keep you safe and sane and whole in this life. Tasha wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that they could figure it out, that love was worth the risk. But looking at his face, at the exhaustion and fear and desperate hope barely contained there, she realized this was not a decision she could make alone. This had to be his choice too. Tomorrow, she said finally. Let us talk about this tomorrow, when you are not hurt and exhausted, when we can think clearly. Luca nodded slowly. Tomorrow. Tasha moved toward the door, then paused and looked back at him. He stood there in his study, shirtless and bandaged, looking like a man carrying the weight of worlds. For what it is worth, she said quietly, I think you are wrong. I think you are stronger than you believe. And I think you deserve to be happy, not just to make others happy. Then she left before he could respond. Upstairs, she checked on Sophie. The little girl was still asleep, peaceful in her butterfly-decorated room. Tasha stood watching her for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences and the strange paths life sometimes took. She had come here desperate and hopeless, willing to do anything for money. Now she was desperate and hopeful, willing to do anything for love. The irony was not lost on her. Tomorrow was day 8, her last day, the day she was supposed to leave and never look back. But as Tasha finally went to bed, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. She did not want to leave. Not Sophie, not this house, not Luca. The question was whether she would be allowed to stay, and whether staying would save them or destroy them all. Tasha woke on the 8th day to sunlight streaming through her window and the sound of laughter from the garden below. She lay still for a moment, disoriented. Then memory returned. This was supposed to be her last morning here. Supposed to be. She went to the window and looked down. Sophie was in the garden with Luca, both of them crouched beside the greenhouse. Even from here, she could see Sophie's excitement, could hear her squealing with delight. Tasha dressed quickly and hurried downstairs. In the garden, Sophie turned at the sound of her approach, her face radiant with joy. Tasha! Tasha! Come look! It happened! The butterfly came out! Tasha hurried over to where they crouched. Inside a mesh enclosure, a butterfly clung to a branch, its wings still damp and crumpled. As they watched, it slowly began to pump fluid into its wings, and they started to expand and strengthen. A monarch butterfly, Luca said, his voice soft with wonder. Perfect timing. It is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, Sophie breathed. Look how it transforms. Just like in my speech. They watched in silence as the butterfly continued its emergence into the world. Its wings spread fully, revealing the characteristic orange and black pattern. After about 20 minutes, it began to move, testing its new form. "We should let it go," Sophie said. "Butterflies need to be free." "Are you sure?" Luca asked. "You waited so long to see this." "I am sure," Sophie said seriously. "Keeping it would be selfish. It needs to fly." Luca opened the enclosure carefully. The butterfly sat for a moment on Sophie's extended finger, then took flight. They all watched it spiral up into the morning sky, dancing on the breeze until it disappeared over the garden wall. Sophie wiped at her eyes, tears and smiles mixing together. "That was perfect," she whispered. Luca put his arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. He looked up at Tasha, and something passed between them. A moment of shared beauty, of understanding, of something that felt like family. "Come," Diane called from the house. "Breakfast is ready, and it is a special one." They went inside to find the dining table set elaborately. Pancakes, fruit, eggs, everything Sophie loved. Diane had outdone herself. "What is all this for?" Sophie asked. "For you," Diane said, "and for Tasha's last day with us. We wanted it to be special." The words fell like stones into water, rippling through the moment. Sophie's smile faded. "Last day," she repeated, looking at Tasha. "But I thought—" "The week is over, sweetheart," Luca said gently. "That was the agreement. Tasha has her own life to get back to." "But she could stay," Sophie said, her voice rising. "She could stay if she wanted to, right, Tasha? You could stay?" Tasha looked at Luca, who looked away. The conversation from last night hung between them, unfinished. "We need to talk about that," Tasha said carefully. "What is there to talk about?" Sophie demanded. "Do you want to stay or not?" "It is not that simple, little one," Luca said. "Yes, it is," Sophie insisted. "Tasha, do you want to stay?" "Yes," Tasha said, the word escaping before she could stop it. "Yes, I want to stay." "Papa, do you want her to stay?" Luca closed his eyes briefly. "What I want is not the question." "Yes, it is," Sophie said. "It is exactly the question. Do you want Tasha to stay?" The silence stretched. Tasha held her breath, waiting. "Yes," Luca finally said, so quietly it was almost a whisper. "Yes, I want her to stay." "Then why is she leaving?" Sophie asked, confusion and frustration clear on her face. "Because wanting something is not enough," Luca said. "Sometimes we have to do what is right, even when it is not what we want." "That is stupid," Sophie said, and there were tears in her eyes now. "That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard." "Sophie," Luca said warningly. "No," Sophie said, standing up from the table. "You are being stupid. Both of you. Tasha wants to stay. You want her to stay. I want her to stay. But you are going to make her leave anyway because of your dangerous work and your rules and all the grown-up reasons that do not make any sense." "Sophie," Tasha started, "I am 5 years old, and even I know that when people love each other, they are supposed to stay together." Sophie continued, tears streaming down her face now. "They are supposed to be a family. They are supposed to choose each other. But you are choosing fear instead. You are choosing to be alone instead." The words hung in the air, devastating in their simple truth. "You do not understand," Luca said, his voice tight. "I understand that my birth mother left because she was scared," Sophie said. "And now Tasha is going to leave because you are scared. And I am going to be alone again with just you and Diane and bodyguards and no one who stays." She turned and ran from the room. They heard her footsteps pounding up the stairs, then the slam of her bedroom door. Diane stood up. "I will go to her." "No," Luca said. "Let me." He left the room, moving carefully because of his ribs. Tasha sat at the table surrounded by the special breakfast, feeling like her heart was breaking. Diane sat down across from her. "That child is wise beyond her years." "She is right," Tasha said. "We are being stupid." "Mr. Moretti is afraid," Diane said. "Not of enemies or danger or death. He is afraid of failing another person he cares about, of not being enough." "He is enough," Tasha said. More than enough." "I know that. You know that. Sophie knows that. But he does not believe it. Not yet." Diane reached across and patted Tasha's hand. "Give him time. He is stubborn, but he is not foolish. He will see what is right in front of him." Upstairs, Luca found Sophie face down on her bed, sobbing into her pillow. He sat beside her carefully and placed a hand on her back. "Sophie," he said gently. "Go away," she said into the pillow. "I know you are angry with me." "I'm not angry. I am sad." Sophie rolled over to look at him, her face blotchy with tears. "Why can you not just let her stay, Papa? Why does everything have to be so complicated?" "Because my life is complicated," Luca said. "And bringing people into it means putting them in danger." "Tasha does not care about danger," Sophie said. "She told me she is brave. She told me brave people do scary things anyway." "She said that?" "Yes, when I was scared about my birthday speech. She said being brave means doing things even when you are frightened." Sophie sat up. "So why can you not be brave, Papa? Why can you not let yourself be happy?" Luca felt the words pierce him. His 5-year-old daughter asking why he could not be brave, telling him he deserved happiness. "I am trying to protect you," he said, "and her. But we do not need protection from being together," Sophie said. "We need protection from being apart. That is what hurts. Not your work or your enemies or any of that. What hurts is being alone." Luca pulled Sophie into his arms, holding her close despite the pain in his ribs. She clung to him, and he felt her tears soaking into his shirt. "I do not want to be alone anymore, Papa," Sophie whispered. "I want Tasha to be my real mama. I want us to be a real family. Please, please do not make her go." Luca closed his eyes, feeling the weight of his daughter's wish, the weight of his own heart, the weight of a week that had changed everything. "Let me talk to her," he said finally. "Just the two of us. Will you give me that?" Sophie pulled back and looked at him hopefully. "And then she can stay?" "I do not know yet, little one, but I promise to really think about it. To be brave, like you said. Can you accept that?" Sophie nodded, wiping her eyes. "Okay, but think fast. She might leave before you decide." Luca smiled despite everything. Wise advice. He kissed Sophie's forehead and left her with her butterflies and her hope. Downstairs, he found Tasha still sitting at the breakfast table, looking lost. "Walk with me?" he asked. They went to the garden together, walking slowly through paths lined with flowers. The monarch they had released was long gone, finding its freedom. Luca wished transformation was so simple for people. "Sophie is right," he said finally. "We are being foolish. She is very perceptive." "She gets that from her mother," Luca said. Then he stopped walking and turned to face Tasha. "Not her birth mother. You." Tasha's breath caught. "Luca, let me finish," he said. "Please, I need to say this." She nodded. "This week was supposed to be simple," Luca began. "A transaction, money for time. I would get Sophie her perfect birthday, you would get the means to start over, and we would part ways with no complications." "Yes," Tasha said. "But nothing was simple," Luca continued. "From the moment Sophie met you, everything changed. She lit up in ways I have not seen since she was very small. She laughed more, asked fewer questions about why her mother left. She stopped looking at other families with that expression of longing that used to break my heart. She is easy to love," Tasha said. "And you loved her," Luca said. "Really loved her, not just pretended. I could see it in every interaction. The way you listened to her butterfly facts like they were the most important things in the world. The way you sat with her when she was scared about her speech. The way you held her when she cried about her birth mother. You were not acting. You were being a mother." Tasha felt tears prick her eyes. "I told myself I had to let you go," Luca said. "That it was safer for everyone. That my life was too dangerous, too complicated, too dark for someone like you. Someone good and kind and whole." "I am not as whole as you think," Tasha said. "I was broken when you found me. Completely broken." "And now?" Luca asked. "Are you still broken?" Tasha thought about it. About the week she had spent here. About Sophie's laughter and Diane's kindness and the strange sense of belonging she had found in this house with its secrets and shadows. "No," she said. "I am not broken anymore. Being here fixed something in me I did not even know was damaged." Luca stepped closer to her. "You fixed something in us too. In Sophie, yes, but also in me. I have been alone for so long, Tasha. Alone in a house full of people. Alone with my responsibilities and my rules and my desperate attempts to control everything. And then you came here, and suddenly I was not alone anymore. You do not have to be alone, Tasha said. Not if you do not want to be alone. I am scared, Luca admitted. Terrified, actually. Of failing you. Of not being enough. Of my world consuming you the way it almost consumed Sophie's mother. I am not her, Tasha said firmly. I am stronger than I look. And I am not afraid of your world. I am afraid of leaving it. Of leaving you and Sophie and going back to a life that does not feel real anymore. Luca reached up and touched her face gently. If you stay, it will not be easy. There will be danger. There will be nights I come home hurt. There will be secrets I cannot share and risks I cannot eliminate. Can you truly live with that? Can you truly live without it? Tasha countered. Without someone to come home to? Without someone to share the weight with? Without love? The word hung between them, finally spoken aloud. Love, Luca repeated softly. Is that what this is? Yes, Tasha said. I think it is. I love Sophie, and I love you. I do not know when it happened or how, but it is real and it is mine, and I do not want to give it up. Luca closed his eyes, and when he opened them, they were bright with emotion. I love you too, he said. I think I have loved you since the moment you knelt down to hug Sophie in the garden that first day. Since you looked at my daughter with real affection instead of obligation. Since you chose to stay when you could have run. Then let me stay, Tasha said. Really stay. Not for a week, not for an arrangement, but forever. Let us be a family. Are you sure? Luca asked. Absolutely certain? Because once you say yes, I will not let you go. I will marry you. I will make you Sophie's mother legally. I will tie you to this life completely. There will be no going back. I am sure, Tasha said. I have never been more sure of anything. Luca pulled her into his arms, careful of his ribs, and kissed her. It was gentle and fierce all at once, full of promise and hope, and the kind of certainty that comes from making an impossible choice and knowing it is right. When they finally pulled apart, they were both smiling. We should tell Sophie, Luca said. Yes, Tasha agreed, before she wears a hole in her carpet from pacing. They walked back to the house hand in hand. At Sophie's door, Luca knocked gently. Sophie, may we come in? Yes, came the small voice. They entered to find Sophie sitting on her bed, surrounded by her butterfly books, clearly trying to distract herself. She looked up at them with hope and fear warring on her face. I have a question for you, Luca said. A very important question. Sophie nodded, not breathing. How would you feel if Tasha stayed? Luca asked. Not for one more day, not for another week, but forever. If she became your real mother and we became a real family? Sophie's eyes went huge. Really? Really truly? Really truly, Tasha said, kneeling down to Sophie's level. If you want me. If I want you? Sophie repeated, as if the question was absurd. Then she launched herself at Tasha, wrapping her arms around her neck so tightly Tasha could barely breathe. Yes, yes, I want you. I want you to stay forever and ever. Tasha held her, feeling Sophie's heart racing against her own. Over the child's head, she met Luca's eyes. He was smiling, really smiling, and the transformation made him look younger and lighter and happier than she had ever seen him. So it is settled, Luca said. We are a family. A real family, Sophie said, pulling back to look at both of them. This is the best day of my life, even better than my birthday. Diane appeared in the doorway, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. I heard, she said. Congratulations. You are all exactly what each other needed. The rest of the day passed in a happy blur. Sophie wanted to celebrate, so they had an impromptu party in the garden. Diane made a special cake. Rocco even smiled when told the news, a rare expression that made Sophie giggle. That evening, after Sophie was asleep, Luca and Tasha sat together in his study. He poured 2 glasses of wine, and they toasted to new beginnings. I need to ask you something, Luca said. Tomorrow we start making this official. Paperwork, legal arrangements, eventually marriage and adoption. Are you ready for all of that? Yes, Tasha said, but I have a condition. Oh, Luca raised an eyebrow. I want to meet your associates, Tasha said. The people you work with. If I am going to be part of your life, I need to understand all of it. No more secrets. Luca considered this. It could be dangerous. The more you know, the more I can protect myself and Sophie, Tasha finished. I am not asking to be involved in your work. I am asking to understand it. There is a difference. You are right, Luca said slowly. If you are going to be my wife, you should know what that means. All of it. So we agree? We agree. Luca set down his wine and took her hand. Tomorrow we start building our future. Together. Together, Tasha echoed. And sitting there in the study with its shadows and secrets, she felt certain they had made the right choice. This life would not be easy. There would be challenges and dangers and difficult days, but they would face it all together as a family, and that made all the difference. 3 months passed in a whirlwind of change and new beginnings. Tasha moved her few remaining possessions into Luca's home permanently. Her mother visited, healthy and glowing, and cried happy tears when she met Sophie. The medical bills were truly gone, and her mother had found a part-time job she enjoyed. Life had transformed for both of them, but the biggest transformation was happening in the Moretti household itself. Luca kept his promise about transparency. He introduced Tasha to his world carefully, methodically. She met his key associates, men with hard faces and harder reputations, who nonetheless treated her with careful respect. She learned that Luca's organization provided protection to legitimate businesses, resolved disputes, and operated with a strict code of ethics that prohibited harming innocents or vulnerable people. It was still dangerous, still morally gray, but it was not the mindless violence she had feared. There were rules, standards, a strange kind of honor. My father's restaurant was destroyed by chaos, Luca explained one evening. By people with no code, no rules, no conscience. I built something different. Structure, protection, order. It is not perfect, but it is better than the alternative. Tasha came to understand the weight he carried, the people who depended on him, the balance he maintained between power and principle. It did not make the danger disappear, but it made it comprehensible. Sophie bloomed under the new arrangement. She stopped asking when Tasha would leave. She introduced Tasha to her school friends as my mom with casual certainty. Her nightmares about abandonment faded. She seemed lighter, happier, more secure. One morning, 6 months after Tasha had first entered the Moretti mansion, Sophie came running into the kitchen where Tasha was making breakfast. Can I call you Mama now? She asked breathlessly. Not just when I am excited, but all the time? Tasha knelt down and pulled Sophie into a hug. I would love that, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Nothing would make me happier. Mama, Sophie said, testing the word. Then louder, Mama, she giggled. I have a mama, a real mama who chose to stay. That evening, Luca proposed. It was not dramatic or elaborate. They were in the garden after Sophie had gone to bed, sitting on the bench where Tasha had first watched the little girl play. The stars were bright overhead, and the air smelled of roses. Tasha, Luca said, taking her hand, these past months have been the happiest of my life. You have brought joy and light into this house. Sophie adores you. I adore you. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, a deep blue sapphire surrounded by diamonds that caught the moonlight. Will you marry me? He asked. Not because of any arrangement or pretending, but because I love you. Because I want to spend my life with you. Because you are already my family, and I want to make it legal. Tears streamed down Tasha's face as she looked at the ring, at Luca's hopeful expression, at the life they had built together. Yes, she said, absolutely yes. Luca slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. He kissed her properly then, deeply and thoroughly, and Tasha felt like she was exactly where she belonged. They told Sophie the next morning at breakfast. The child screamed with delight and insisted on calling everyone she knew to share the news. My mama and papa are getting married, she announced to anyone who would listen. We are going to be a forever family. The wedding was planned for 3 months later, small and intimate, just close friends and family. Tasha's mother would be there, beaming with pride. Diane would help organize everything. Sophie would be the flower girl, a role she took extremely seriously. But first came the legal adoption. Luca arranged for the best attorneys, and they began the process of making Tasha officially Sophie's mother in the eyes of the law. The day they went to court was overcast but warm. Sophie wore her best dress, purple with butterfly details. She held both Tasha's and Luca's hands as they walked into the courthouse. The judge was a kind-faced woman in her 60s. She reviewed the paperwork, then looked at Sophie. "Young lady," she said, "do you understand what we are doing here today?" "Yes," Sophie said clearly. "Tasha is going to be my legal mama. So if anything happens, she can take care of me. And so everyone knows she is real. And is this what you want?" "More than anything," Sophie said. "I wished for a mama, and I got Tasha. She is perfect. She reads me stories and helps with my homework and listens to all my butterfly facts, even when they are boring. She stays even when I am cranky. She loves me." The judge smiled. "She sounds wonderful." "She is," Sophie agreed. The judge looked at Tasha. "And you, Ms. Bennett, are you prepared to take on all the responsibilities of parenthood? To love and care for this child as your own?" "I already do," Tasha said. "Making it legal is just paperwork. She has been my daughter in every way that matters for months now." "Then I am happy to grant this adoption," the judge said. She signed the papers with a flourish. "Congratulations, you are now legally a family." Sophie burst into tears, happy tears that soaked Tasha's shirt as she hugged her. Luca wrapped his arms around both of them, his own eyes suspiciously bright. Outside the courthouse, Sophie insisted on taking photos. "This is the second best day of my life," she announced, "after my 5th birthday." "What about your 6th birthday?" Luca asked. "That was pretty good too." "Every birthday is good," Sophie said seriously, "but the adoption day is special, because now nobody can take Mama away." The wedding came next. They held it at the house in the garden where so much of their story had unfolded. White chairs were set up in rows. Flowers were everywhere, carefully chosen by Sophie to include as many butterflies attracting blooms as possible. Tasha wore a simple but elegant dress in soft ivory with green accents, a nod to her mother's cardigan that had been with her through everything. Her mother walked her down the makeshift aisle, pride radiating from every pore. Luca waited at the altar, looking devastatingly handsome in a black suit. His eyes never left Tasha as she approached, and the love in his expression made her heart swell. Sophie stood between them, holding a basket of rose petals. She had taken her flower girl duties very seriously, practicing her walk for weeks. When the ceremony began, she carefully dropped petals all the way to the altar, then stood proudly beside her parents. The officiant was a friend of Luca's, someone who understood their unusual story and found it beautiful rather than strange. "We are gathered here," he began, "to celebrate a love that began in the most unexpected way. A desperate father, a hopeless woman, a little girl's wish. But what started as an arrangement became something real, something precious, something worth celebrating." Luca and Tasha had written their own vows. Luca went first. "Tasha," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion, "I hired you to pretend to be my wife for 1 week, but you became so much more than that. You became Sophie's mother, genuinely and completely. You became my partner, my equal, my best friend. You brought light into our darkness. You taught me that love was worth the risk. You showed me that family is not just blood, but choice. I choose you. Every day, for the rest of my life, I choose you." Tasha was crying before she even began her own vows. "Luca," she said, her voice shaking, "when you found me, I had nothing. No home, no hope, no future. You gave me all three. But more than that, you gave me a family. You trusted me with your daughter, your heart, your complicated life. You let me see all of you, the strength and the vulnerability. You taught me that being brave means loving even when it is scary. I was hired to be your wife, but I choose to be your wife, forever." The officiant asked for the rings. Sophie produced them with a flourish, having guarded them zealously all morning. As Lucas slipped the wedding band onto Tasha's finger, he whispered, "Thank you for saying yes to all of it." "Thank you for asking," she whispered back. They were pronounced husband and wife. When Luca kissed Tasha, Sophie cheered loudly, and the small crowd of guests applauded. But then Sophie tugged on their hands. "Wait," she said. "Can I say something?" "Of course, sweetheart," Tasha said. Sophie turned to face the guests, suddenly shy but determined. She pulled a folded paper from her dress pocket. "I wrote a speech," she announced. "Diane helped me practice." She unfolded the paper carefully and began to read. "When I was little, my first mama left. I did not understand why, and it made me sad for a long time. I thought maybe something was wrong with me. Maybe I was not good enough to make her stay." Luca's hand tightened on Tasha's. "But then I met Tasha," Sophie continued, "and she chose to stay. Not because she had to, not because Papa made her, but because she wanted to. She loved me, even though I am sometimes cranky and I talk too much about butterflies and I ask too many questions." A ripple of gentle laughter went through the crowd. "Tasha taught me something important," Sophie said, looking up from her paper. "She taught me that real love means choosing to stay, choosing to be there even when it is hard, choosing each other every day. That is what she did for me. That is what she does for Papa, and that is what makes her my real mama." Sophie folded her paper and looked at Tasha and Luca. "Thank you for choosing us," she said simply. "Thank you for making us a forever family." There was not a dry eye in the garden. Tasha knelt down and pulled Sophie into a hug, and Luca wrapped his arms around both of them. They stayed that way for a long moment, the three of them, while their guests wiped tears and smiled. The reception was joyful and relaxed. Luca's associates mingled with Tasha's mother and friends from Sophie's school. Diane had outdone herself with the food. Someone played music and people danced in the garden as the afternoon turned to evening. Luca pulled Tasha close for their first dance as husband and wife. They swayed together, and Tasha marveled at how much had changed. A year ago, she had been sitting on concrete steps with nothing. Now she had everything. "What are you thinking?" Luca murmured. "That I am incredibly lucky," Tasha said. "That this is real. That I get to keep you and Sophie forever." "We are the lucky ones," Luca said. "You saved us. Both of us. We were functioning, but we were not really living. Not until you." "We saved each other," Tasha said. "That is how family works." Later, Sophie asked to dance with both of them. The three of them moved together to a slow song, laughing and content. "This is perfect," Sophie said, her head resting against Tasha's waist. "This is exactly what I wish for. A family that chooses each other." "We will always choose each other," Luca promised. "That is what makes us strong." As the celebration continued around them, Tasha looked at her husband and her daughter and felt a contentment so deep it almost hurt. She thought about the journey that had brought them here, about desperate offers and brave acceptances, about learning to trust, about choosing to stay when leaving would have been easier. She thought about transformation, about how caterpillars become butterflies, about how broken people can become whole again when given love and time and a place to belong. Over the next year, their family continued to grow and strengthen. They adopted two more children, a brother and sister from foster care who needed a home. Sophie was thrilled to be a big sister. Their house, once quiet and controlled, became filled with noise and laughter and life. Tasha eventually opened a small bookstore, something she had always dreamed of. Luca helped with the business plan. Sophie helped choose books for the children's section. Diane managed the attached cafe. It became a family project, and it thrived. Luca's work continued, dangerous and complicated as ever. But now when he came home, whether uninjured or hurt, he had a family waiting. Someone to share the weight with. Someone to remind him why he did what he did. And sometimes, late at night when everyone else was asleep, he and Tasha would sit together in the garden where it had all begun. They would talk about the future, about Sophie's dreams of becoming a lepidopterist, about the bookstore's expansion plans, about whether they might add another child to their growing family. "Do you ever regret it?" Luca asked one such night, "saying yes to a stranger's impossible offer, choosing this complicated life?" "Never," Tasha said without hesitation. "Not once. This is where I belong. With you, with Sophie, with our family. Even with the danger, the secrets, the complications. Especially with those things," Tasha said. "Because they are part of you, and I love all of you. The dangerous parts and the gentle parts. The complicated parts and the simple parts. All of it." Luca pulled her close, grateful beyond words. I love you, he said, more than I knew it was possible to love someone. I love you too, Tasha replied. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for taking the chance on a desperate woman sitting on concrete steps. Thank you for saying yes, Luca said. Thank you for staying. And sitting there in the garden under the stars, surrounded by the life they had built together, they both knew they had made the right choice. Love had found them in the strangest way. But it had found them nonetheless, and that made all the difference. 2 years after the wedding, the Moretti household had transformed into something unrecognizable from the quiet, controlled mansion Tasha had first entered. The house that had once held only Luca, Sophie, and Diane now burst with life. Sophie was 7 now, still obsessed with butterflies, but also developing interests in art and reading. She had started a butterfly garden at her school and gave presentations about metamorphosis that made her teachers smile. She was confident and happy, secure in the knowledge that her family was permanent. The two children they had adopted, Maria and Carlos, ages 6 and 8, had been with them for over a year. Initially wary and closed off after years in foster care, they had slowly opened up under Tasha's patient love and Luca's steady presence. Carlos now followed Rocco around like a shadow, fascinated by everything the bodyguard did. Maria had bonded with Sophie over books and art, and the two girls were inseparable. The house echoed with children's laughter, arguments over toys, the thunder of feet on stairs. Diane complained good-naturedly about the mess, but secretly loved every minute. Even Luca, who had once valued quiet and control, found himself smiling at the chaos. On a warm Saturday morning in late summer, Tasha woke early. Luca was still asleep beside her, his face peaceful in the morning light. She studied him, this man who had changed her life so completely. The gray in his hair was more pronounced now, and there were new lines around his eyes. But he seemed lighter somehow, less weighted by the burdens he carried. She slipped from bed quietly and went downstairs. Diane was already in the kitchen, preparing what had become their tradition: Saturday morning pancakes for the whole family. Good morning, Diane said, smiling. Coffee is fresh. You are a lifesaver, Tasha said, pouring herself a cup. How are you this morning? Wonderful, Diane said. I was thinking about retiring soon. Tasha nearly dropped her coffee. Retiring, but you are part of this family. Exactly, Diane said, which is why I am not leaving. I am just stepping back from housekeeper duties, spending more time with the grandchildren than I ever had. She gestured around at the house. You have this under control now. You do not need me the same way. We will always need you, Tasha said firmly, but if you want to do less work and more grandmother duties, we can arrange that. That is exactly what I want, Diane said, to be Grandma Diane officially, to spoil these children properly. They were still discussing details when Sophie appeared, rubbing sleep from her eyes. She was followed shortly by Maria, then Carlos, and finally Luca, looking rumpled and content. Breakfast was the usual controlled chaos. Carlos talked about a project he was building with Rocco. Maria showed everyone drawings she had made. Sophie reminded them all that her school's science fair was in 2 weeks and she needed help with her butterfly migration project. Luca listened to everything, contributing suggestions and praise in equal measure. After breakfast, Luca announced he had a surprise. Today, he said, we are going somewhere special. Everyone get dressed, comfortable clothes. The children peppered him with questions, but he remained mysterious. An hour later, they all piled into 2 cars, Rocco driving one and Luca the other, and headed out of the city. They drove for about 40 minutes before turning onto a long driveway. At the end sat a beautiful house, smaller than their mansion, but bright and welcoming. It had a large yard, gardens, and a view of rolling hills. Where are we? Tasha asked as they parked. A possibility, Luca said. Come, let me show you. They toured the house together. It had 5 bedrooms, a large kitchen with a breakfast nook, a living room with a fireplace, and a study with built-in bookshelves. The yard had a pool, a guest house, and space for gardens. What is this place? Tasha asked. Luca turned to face her, suddenly serious. A choice for all of us. He gathered the children around them. I have been thinking, Luca said carefully, about what we talked about balance, about safety, about what kind of life we want for our family. What are you saying? Tasha asked, her heart beginning to race. I am saying that I have been making arrangements, Luca said, delegating more of my responsibilities, stepping back from the day-to-day operations. I will never be completely out, but I can be less central, less exposed, less at risk. Luca, Tasha breathed. This house, Luca continued, gesturing around them, could be ours. If we want it, a place outside the city, away from the mansion and everything it represents. Still close enough for me to handle business when needed, but far enough to be separate, safe. Are you sure? Tasha asked. Your work will continue, Luca said, but differently. I have good people I trust, people who can handle more. I am 47 years old, Tasha. I am tired of coming home bleeding, tired of seeing fear in your eyes when I am late, tired of missing bedtime because of situations that need handling. He looked at the children who were listening with wide eyes. I want to be present for this, Luca said, for all of you, for soccer games and science fairs and bedtime stories, for ordinary, boring, beautiful family life. And I think I have finally earned the right to try. Tears streamed down Tasha's face. Yes, she said. Yes, this is what I want, what we all want. Can we really live here? Sophie asked. Away from the big house? If you want to, Luca said. We would keep the mansion for when we need it. But this could be home, our real home. What do you think? Sophie looked at her siblings, then back at her parents. I think it is perfect. It has space for gardens. And I saw a greenhouse. And the yard is big enough for all of us to play. Maria tugged on Tasha's hand. Would we each have our own room? She asked shyly. She still struggled with believing good things could be permanent. Yes, Tasha said, kneeling down. Your own room that you could decorate however you want. Forever yours. Forever, Maria repeated. Forever, Tasha confirmed. This is our family. Nothing is going to change that. Carlos looked at Luca. Would Rocco come visit still? Luca smiled. Rocco would probably want to live in the guest house and claim he is providing security. But yes, you would still see him. Then I like it, Carlos decided. They spent the afternoon exploring the property, planning where gardens would go, which room would belong to which child, how they would set up the pool area. The children ran wild in the yard, their laughter echoing across the hills. Tasha and Luca stood on the back porch, watching them play. Are you really sure about this? Tasha asked. About stepping back? I am not stepping away completely, Luca said. I will still have responsibilities. But yes, I am sure. These past 2 years have taught me something. Taught me that family is not something you fit around your life. Family is your life. Everything else is just what you do to protect it. When did you become so wise? Tasha teased gently. I've been taking lessons from our 7-year-old, Luca said. She has very strong opinions about bravery and choosing happiness. She does, Tasha agreed. I wonder where she gets that. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their children. Sophie was teaching Maria how to identify butterflies. Carlos was exploring the far edge of the property with the determined focus he brought to everything. Can you believe it has only been 2 years? Tasha said. Since I was sitting on those concrete steps? Sometimes it feels like forever ago, Luca said. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, but always it feels like exactly what was supposed to happen. Fate? Tasha asked, amused. Luck, Luca corrected. Incredible, impossible luck. For both of us. The following months were a whirlwind of moving and adjustment. They kept the mansion for business purposes and occasional use, but the new house became home. The children adapted quickly, thriving in the space and freedom. Tasha's bookstore continued to grow. She opened a second location near the new house, this one with an even larger children's section and weekly story hours. Sophie and Maria helped organize the shelves and made recommendations to customers. Carlos discovered a love of science fiction and devoured books faster than Tasha could stock them. Luca made good on his promise. He delegated more, trusted his people more, and came home for dinner every night unless something absolutely required his presence. And when he did have to go out, he came home safer, less often hurt. The worst incidents became rare rather than regular. On Sophie's 8th birthday, they had another butterfly-themed party, but this time it was at their new home, with friends from her new school joining the celebration. She gave another speech, this one about how butterflies sometimes migrate hundreds of miles, but always know how to find home. Home is not a place, Sophie said seriously. It is people. It is family. And I am very lucky because my family chose each other. We are not connected by birth. We are connected by choice. And that makes us stronger than any other kind of family. The guests applauded and Sophie beamed. After cake, the children scattered to play, and the adults lingered in the garden. Tasha's mother sat beside her, healthy and content. I am so proud of you, she said. Look at everything you have built. We built it together, Tasha said. All of us. You could have run, her mother said, that first day when Luca offered you that impossible choice. You could have said no, could have found another way. I could have, Tasha agreed, but then I would have missed all of this. The fear, the risk, the impossibility. It was worth it. All of it. Later, after the guests had left and the children were in bed, Tasha and Luca took their customary walk around the property. It had become their ritual, this quiet time together at the end of each day. Happy? Luca asked. Impossibly happy, Tasha said. Sometimes I am afraid I will wake up and discover this was all a dream. It is real, Luca assured her, all of it. The messy, complicated, beautiful reality we built together. They walked in silence for a while, hand in hand, under the stars. Then Luca spoke again. I have something to tell you, he said. About my work. Tasha's stomach clenched. What happened? Nothing bad, Luca said quickly. Actually, something good. I have been working on an exit strategy, a way to step back even further, to hand control to trusted people while maintaining enough influence to keep everyone safe. How long? Tasha asked. 5 years, Luca said. Maybe less if things go well. By the time Sophie is 13, I should be almost completely out. Just a consultant, an advisor, no more direct involvement, no more danger. Tasha stopped walking and turned to face him. Are you serious? Completely, Luca said. I want to be there for all of it. For Sophie's teenage years, for Maria and Carlos growing up, for whatever else life brings us. I want to be a normal father, a normal husband, as normal as possible anyway. Tasha threw her arms around him, holding tight. I love you, she said, so much. I love you too, Luca said. Thank you for giving me a reason to want something different. Thank you for showing me that change was possible. Years continued to pass in a blur of ordinary moments that felt extraordinary simply because they existed. Carlos excelled in school and became interested in engineering. Maria discovered a talent for painting and covered the house with her artwork. Sophie pursued her passion for butterflies and began talking about studying biology in college. The bookstore expanded again. Luca fully stepped back from his work, transitioning power carefully and completely. Diane officially became Grandma Diane and spent her days spoiling the children and teaching them to cook. Tasha's mother moved into a small cottage on their property, close enough to be present, but far enough to maintain independence. She became an integral part of their family, another person who had chosen to stay, to be part of something bigger than herself. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Luca took Tasha back to the mansion. It was quiet now, used only for occasional meetings and storage. They walked through the rooms where their story had begun. Do you remember? Luca asked as they stood in the garden. Right here. This is where you met Sophie for the first time. I remember, Tasha said. She ran up and demanded to test my hugs. And you knelt down without hesitation, Luca said. Right then, I knew you were special, knew you were going to change our lives. They walked to the bench where Sophie had shown Tasha her butterfly book, where they had spent so many afternoons in those early days, building something real from something pretend. I was so scared, Tasha admitted, of you, of this place, of the arrangement, but I was more scared of going back to those concrete steps, of having nothing. And now, Luca asked. Now I have everything, Tasha said. More than I ever dreamed possible. A family, a home, a purpose, love. We have everything, Luca corrected, because you said yes to an impossible offer, because you were brave enough to take a chance on a stranger and his daughter, because you chose to stay when leaving would have been safer. Best decision I ever made, Tasha said. They left the mansion as the sun was setting, driving back to their real home where their children waited. Sophie was helping Maria with homework. Carlos was building something complicated in his room. Grandma Diane was making dinner. Everything was exactly as it should be. That evening, after the children were asleep, the family gathered around the fireplace. It had become their tradition on special occasions, this time together reflecting on their journey. Tell us the story again, Maria asked. She never tired of hearing how their family had formed. About how you met. Tasha looked at Luca and they shared a smile. They had told a version of this story many times, edited for young ears but true in the ways that mattered. Once upon a time, Tasha began, there was a woman who had lost everything. She sat on concrete steps with nowhere to go and no hope left. And there was a man who loved his daughter so much that he would do anything to make her happy. And there was a little girl who wished for a mother. That is me, Sophie said, grinning. She knew the story by heart but loved hearing it anyway. That is you, Tasha confirmed. And one day the man found the woman. He made her an offer that seemed impossible. Come pretend to be my wife for 1 week. Give my daughter one perfect birthday. And in return, I will give you hope again. And Mama said yes, Maria continued. She had heard the story so many times she could recite it. I said yes, Tasha agreed. Even though I was scared, even though it seemed crazy, I said yes because sometimes the best things come from impossible beginnings. And you fell in love, Carlos said, with Sophie and with Papa. We fell in love, Luca agreed. All of us. We became a family not because we had to, but because we chose to. Every single day, we chose each other. And then you chose us too, Maria said softly, even though we were scared and broken. You were never broken, Tasha said firmly. You were just waiting for the right family to find you. And we were waiting for you. And now we all live happily ever after, Sophie finished. Forever and ever. Forever and ever, everyone echoed. And it was true. Not perfectly. Life was still complicated. There were still challenges and difficult days. Luca still occasionally had to handle situations, though now they were rare and less dangerous. Money was never an issue, but the children sometimes struggled with the normal problems all children face. Growing pains and homework stress and friendship drama, but they faced everything together. As a family, as people who had chosen each other and continued to choose each other every single day. Years later, when Sophie graduated from high school as valedictorian, her speech was about transformation, about how caterpillars become butterflies, about how people become families, about how love transforms everything it touches. My mother, she said, gesturing to Tasha in the audience, taught me that family is not about biology or tradition. It is about choice. It is about staying when you could leave. It is about choosing love, even when it is scary. My parents found each other in the strangest way, but they built something beautiful from that strange beginning. They showed me that transformation is possible for all of us. We just have to be brave enough to change. The audience applauded and Tasha cried, and Luca held her hand tight. Sophie had gotten early acceptance to a prestigious university with a strong lepidoptery program. Maria was thriving as an artist, her paintings already being shown in local galleries. Carlos had been accepted into a specialized engineering program. The family they had built was launching into the world, confident and loved. But they always came home, for holidays and weekends and random Tuesdays when they just missed each other. Because that was what family did. They chose each other, again and again and again. On a quiet evening, 20 years after that first meeting in the garden, Tasha and Luca sat on their porch watching the sunset. Their hair was grayer now, their bodies slower, but their hearts were full. Do you ever think about what would have happened, Tasha asked, if I had said no that day? If I had been too scared to take the chance? Every day, Luca said, and every day I am grateful you were brave enough to say yes. I am grateful you were desperate enough to ask, Tasha said. We were both desperate, Luca said, both broken in our own ways, but we fixed each other, built something whole from the pieces. We did, Tasha agreed. She looked out at the garden, at the flowers and the butterflies dancing in the fading light. We really did. And sitting there together, hands clasped, hearts full, they both knew the truth. Sometimes the best things come from impossible beginnings. Sometimes desperate moments lead to beautiful transformations. Sometimes strangers become family. Sometimes pretending becomes real. And sometimes when you have nothing left to lose, you find everything you have been searching for. Tasha had found her everything in a little girl who loved butterflies, in a man who valued loyalty, in a home filled with laughter and love, in a family built not by blood but by choice. She had been hired to pretend to be someone's wife for 1 week. Instead, she had become someone's wife for life, and that made all the difference. The end did not come with drama or crisis. It came with peace, with contentment, with the quiet joy of a family who had chosen each other and continued choosing each other every single day. Because that was what love was. Not just the big moments, but the daily choice to stay, to be present, to build something real from whatever circumstances brought you together. Tasha and Luca had built something beautiful, something that started impossible and became inevitable, something that proved love could grow from the strangest soil and bloom into the most gorgeous garden. They lived happily ever after, not because life was perfect, but because they were perfect for each other, because they had chosen love when it would have been easier to walk away, because they understood that family was not something you found fully formed. It was something you built piece by piece, choice by choice, day by day. And in the end, that was the best kind of happily ever after there was. The kind built on choice, on transformation, on impossible beginnings that led to beautiful endings. The kind that lasted forever.